all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
It is a Freedom Friday here, right here on The Big Talker, 106.7 FM, overlooking Battleship, North Carolina. As we round out the month of July 2021, great to be with you here on this Friday morning across the Cape Fear region, wherever you may be tuned in through the various platforms we offer each and every weekday morning. Of course, at BigTalkerFM.com. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535. That's 910-299-7535. So over the last couple of days, I've given TK Turbo, our producer, engineer, and programmer, a little leisure time as we move through the dog days of summer. We've got the big family vacation in the Outer Banks in a couple of weeks, so I'm doing some double duty over the next few weeks before TK and my friend Chad Adams pick up some of the slack while I'm away. And last night had a great chance to catch up with one of our partners in Justin Humphreys with the Humphreys Law Firm and his Thursday night talk show, Objection to the Form. And, his featured guest yesterday was one of the candidates running for Wilmington City Council. His name is Luke Waddell, and Luke spent the better part of the hour talking not only about, of course, issues related to the city, but also as a 33-year-old man, how he was able to, grow his small business in real estate and now employing over a dozen people in just a couple of years since launching his firm, and how he has used his entrepreneurial spirit and frankly his concerns for the future of our city to get into this council race that will ramp up moving through the next few months ahead of the November elections for many municipalities across our area. And I was looking through some of the numbers. It's very difficult to find the exact number as far as registered voters in the city of Wilmington alone. The State Board of Elections has a great count, of course, on the county here in New Hanover and every other one here in North Carolina. But looking at some of the vote totals from a couple of years back when Margaret Haynes, Kevin Spears, and Neil Anderson grabbed the top three spots in an election that featured multiple candidates. I think there were 8, 9, 10, 11 or so, including Paul Lawler, who is a former city council member who is now rerunning for election after missing out on that cut a couple of years back. Kevin O'Grady, of course, not seeking re-election, so there will be at least one new member on our city council this upcoming year once the November elections are in the books. Of course, we've got this interesting mayoral race that is going to play out with Vasilios matching up against Harold Peterson, Harper Peterson, Vasilios, of course, Bill Sappho. Those are their legal names. You're able to put a nickname on your ballot when you register to file for candidacy, I should say. And nonetheless, the mayoral race, an interesting one because it splits kind of the Democrat Party. Both registered Democrats. Bill more on the capitalist side of being a Democrat, of course, as his work in the area and his business and his family's business. And then you've got Harold, of course, who skews way far to the Looney Tune left and courting specific voting blocks here within the city. And we'll see how in many instances, a businessman who has failed in running a number of small operations here in the area, mainly in the hospitality industry. That's not to say you want to just totally write him off, as Harper definitely has some backing here in the area, which is why he feels that he has maybe an inroad into becoming the mayor again here in the city of Wilmington. And as far as, some of the businesses that he's run here in the area related to the hospitality industry, I still believe he has an operation going on Bald Head Island where he spends a lot of his time. But that being said, it is not to crush and criticize, his business practices, because in that hospitality industry, we all know the profit margins are very slim and it is very difficult to run a successful restaurant, particularly in a town that is littered with, many different places to go and eat and drink. And you need to be consistent, one, have a great staff, two, and be able to, cater to the customer's needs with a decent location. And, all those sorts of things factor into, of course, being able to run a successful restaurant, not only here locally, but all over, the country. And it's been very difficult over the last year or so, as you know, due to all of the obstacles and hurdles that government has put in the way of our small businesses. But looking at some of those vote totals from a few years back, Neil Anderson was the third leading vote getter in winning re-election. I guess, what was it, in 2019? He had 5,471 votes. The lead vote getter was Margaret Haynes with a little over 6,500, and Kevin Spears had just over 5,700. So you're talking about just over 5,400 votes here in the city of Wilmington to get elected to the council. And there are 3 seats up for grabs. Clifford Barnett running for re-election. Kevin O'Grady deciding not to run for re-election. We've got the mayoral race. So it should be interesting over the next couple of months to hear from the candidates, given the many pressing issues facing our city. Of course, from an infrastructure standpoint, from a crime perspective, yesterday, another day, another murder here in the city of Wilmington. This time a drive-by shooting killed a woman on Thursday, 13th and Wooster Streets. And law enforcement, at least yesterday, finally, not really giving us many details as to what occurred at 13th and Wooster, still awaiting news on, the third victim from the murder and double homicide last weekend up in the Ogden area off Middle Sound Loop Road. Scant on the details into that investigation, other than we kind of all know what the elephant in the room is telling us, and that is that gang violence and these sorts of things are bubbling to the surface right now, and there's not much the law or anyone can do about it. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? So drive-by shooting yesterday afternoon around 5:30, it kills a woman, injures another. She's in critical condition. And law enforcement finally telling the public what we've been saying all week. This isn't going to stop. We've experienced this sort of gang violence before. We've seen it run rampant in many other cities over the course of the past year, coming off a year in which the city of Wilmington recorded its highest homicide numbers in the history of Wilmington. And the captain who spoke yesterday to members of the media basically said, listen, this is going to be a long weekend and a long week ahead, because our insider sources are telling us that people are licking their chops and getting ready to continue this rash of violence that we've seen in our city over the past week that was sparked from that double homicide up in the Ogden area from last weekend. 5th and Grace just the other day. 24 casings marked off at that intersection in broad daylight. And yesterday we have a drive-by shooting that kills one and critically injures another. But fear not for those who live behind gates and inside the brick walls. The garden party at the Azalea Gardens will go on today. as planned. Talk about two distinct differences as to where our city is at right now. All the movers and shakers will be bumping elbows today up at the garden party. Moving most of the Azalea Festival activities towards, the end of summer due to the COVID issues that we've been dealing with. And yesterday, of course, we hear from King Cooper, who delivered a very well-planned word salad for you to try and decipher where he stands on the Delta variant and the uptick in COVID cases that we've seen in our state and all over the country. Pressing businesses statewide to verify whether employees are vaccinated, and if not, requiring them to wear masks and take weekly coronavirus tests. I'm wondering if the tests he's encouraging people to take are of the instantaneous variety, the ones in which we examined earlier this week with Tom Goolsby, known as the PCR tests, of course, that, as the CDC indicated, and in their change on their website just recently, not that they've pointed it out, not that the national media has covered this at all, but those PCR tests, according to Tom and the literature that he sent over from the CDC, directly from the horse's mouth, that, those PCR tests over the past year, not necessarily the most accurate when it comes to recording a positive result. Oh, they give you a positive result, but not only for the coronavirus, but also for the common flu. And there was no way of determining a distinct difference on those PCR tests, the instant tests, whether, you had the Rona or you had the flu. That's not to say that Rona is a figment of our imagination or that people shouldn't get the jab if they feel the need to. All we're saying is, how are we supposed to follow the science and the data if the people responsible for delivering the science and the data can't figure out, their rear end from their elbow? So we'll examine the news briefing that Governor Cooper gave on Thursday. He was not very forthcoming in answering questions from members of the media who, were delivering some very relevant concerns on behalf of the people they inform. And, now he is going to the line that we all know what to do. So I'm going to step to the side, and we all know what to do. He must have said that in response to a handful of questions yesterday over and over again. It is a Freedom Friday, and just after 7:30, of course, we will deliver our latest edition of our weekly Salute to Service segment, highlighting the men and women who serve our country and our armed forces. We've got a great story to tell you today about two young men who followed in their father's footsteps and their call to serve our country. Chad Adams is going to join us just after 8 o'clock, as he does each and every Friday morning, along with our friend Cameron Moore with the Wilmington Cape Fear Homebuilders Association. Some topics of interest that Cameron sent my way last night that will give you a little more knowledge and information in regards to the construction industry, home building, growth, and development in our area. Bringing you detailed information like no one else does concerning one of the biggest topics facing one of the fastest growing regions in all of the country, which is why, trying to get ahead of the curve a year and a half ago, Cameron and I were able to come together and collaborate and form a partnership to deliver what we call the Construction Connection, giving you some insider knowledge that you're not going to get on the nightly news or, frankly, anywhere else within the information platforms that you may consume here in southeastern North Carolina. Yael Ossowski also with us. He's been playing daddy daycare. His wife has been out of town for the last couple of days, so he and daughter spending the last few days alone with one another. I'm wondering how that's all shaking out for Yael and his 3-year-old. Frankly, I love when Sophia and I are able to get together for a couple of days at a time with that, without mom involved. We'll see how Yael is faring on day 3 of Daddy Daycare out in Vienna, Austria, when he joins us to close out our broadcast week as part of our Consumer Choice Center spotlight each and every Friday just after 9:30. Looking forward to the conversation with Yael today. He's been digging into this $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure plan. Yesterday we had Grover Norquist on. He gave his thoughts as to why Mitch McConnell, the Senate Minority Leader, along with the other Republicans, including Senators Tillis and Burr, why they jumped on board with this. Of course, before any legislative text has come out as far as the details of this massive spending proposal. Well, Yael has been digging into this $1.2 trillion plan, and he thinks, we're getting the wool pulled over our eyes when it comes to how we're going to pay for the $1.2 trillion infrastructure plan. No one is denying the fact that our roadways and the systems that we utilize on a day-to-day basis to get us here to there have been aging, crumbling, and failing. Well, we just had this massive debate over the last few days surrounding the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge. In fact, buddy of mine who works within transportation tells me that they've got a full-time crew over at the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge tightening bolts and making sure everything is on the up and up. And they do it on a weekly basis. That doesn't instill confidence in that structure and the future of, the major crossing over the Cape Fear River coming from Wilmington and going into the fastest-growing county in the state of North Carolina. A full-time crew tightening the bolts and making sure everything is on the up and up so the bridge doesn't fail. And they do it weekly. Bet you that's probably the first time you've heard that information from any news source in the area. Always ahead of the curve here on the Big Talker FM. We're 23 minutes past the hour. If you'd like to call in, our number, 910-299-7535.
You crying loud all the way across town. You've been searching for that someone that is beyond on the crowd. As you sit around feeling sorry for yourself.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
We interrupt to bring you this horrible news. Experts say we'll see larger numbers and different breeds of mosquitoes to wreak havoc on your backyard, making this year one of the worst.
Anopheles inculex mosquito.
Yeah. Experts also say there is only one defense against this onslaught. Call the Bugman from Bugno Pest Control.
That's Mr. Bugno to you, pal.
Bugno Pest Control's mosquito-killing formula keeps your yard bug-free. Call Bugno Pest Control, 910-367-2501, or visit bugnopestcontrol.com. Take back your yard.
I'm K.O. Davis from K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree, and I want to be your tree man.
When your trees need cut, 2 letters to know. One is a K, the other is an O. K.O.
Tree man. Proper trimming is the most important thing that you can do, so don't just hire anybody to do it. You need someone that knows what they're doing.
K.O.
Call the professionals at K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree and visit KOTrees.com.
Tune in on Friday mornings to hear The Construction Connection, a collaborative effort between Joe Catanacci with the Big Talker FM and Cameron Moore, the executive officer of the Wilmington Cape Fear Homebuilders Association. You start the conversation and we bring you the answers as we take a regional, in-depth look at growth-related topics and issues centered around the residential and commercial development and building industry. The Construction Connection, Friday mornings on the Big Talker FM.
Attention patriots, listen in to hear President Trump explain why Ted Budd is the right choice for United States Senate.
There's somebody that I think is very special, somebody that I've worked with, always been with me. This man's a great politician, but more importantly, he's somebody that loves the state of North Carolina. He loves the country. But this gentleman is going to be your next senator. He's going to be somebody that you're going to be so proud of. He will fight like hell. He will fight like nobody fights. And a lot of you don't know him that well, but you're going to know him. Ted Budd.
I am giving him my complete and total endorsement. We're going to work with him. We're going to campaign with him. You can't pick people that have already lost 2 races. You can't pick people that have already lost 2 races and do not stand for our values. So I'm going with Congressman Ted Budd, complete and total endorsement.
I'm Ted Budd, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Ted Budd for Senate. See the video at tedbudd.com.
All right, as we head through the first hour of our program, again, Chad Adams with us as he is every Friday inside the second hour. Our Freedom Friday segment, weekly salute to service, coming your way after the bottom of the hour news break. An awesome night for a family that I got to know a few years ago as their son was coming up through the ranks on the ball field over at UNCW. Kid from Fayetteville, his name is Austin Warren, 5'0", 100 made his Major League Baseball debut last night for the Los Angeles Angels. His family all able to fly out there and see him retire all 4 Oakland A's that he faced later on in the game. Very cool to be able to get to know another player whom I followed closely for a few years back in 2017, 2018, before I started working predominantly with Coastal Carolina. But to get an opportunity in the big leagues and to live out a childhood dream, awesome. And I knew it in following him and delivering the play-by-play for UNCW back in his junior year. 2017, he was a junior college transfer. I think he went to Pitt Community College. Again, 5'0", 100 fastball in the low 90s, slider that put away pitch, and he wasn't the highly touted arm for UNCW that year. He wasn't even the top pitcher on the staff. He worked his tail off. He persevered. He adjusted and adapted to the stuff and the strengths that he had on the mound. The stuff was there. He harnessed it. He worked his tail off and made his Major League Baseball debut last night for the LA Angels. Just want to give him a shout out. Austin Warren out of Fayetteville. Awesome. Our Freedom Friday segment comes your way here after the timeout.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. The Biden administration has announced sweeping new pandemic rules for federal workers and some contractors. It is requiring that any federal civilian worker who does not attest to being fully vaccinated will be subject to universal masking, weekly testing, physical distancing from other employees, and restrictions on official travel. The Biden administration hopes this helps boost vaccination rates among millions of Americans who draw federal paychecks and sets an example for private employers around the country. Wilmington police are investigating a deadly drive-by shooting which happened in the 800 block of South 13th Street just before 5:30 last night. It left one woman dead and another critically injured. A spokesman says police are bolstering patrols in the area. The heat is rising, but that doesn't mean your energy bill has to. According to Duke Energy spokesman Jeff Brooks, simple tricks like making sure your air filters are clean, keeping the blinds closed, and turning off the lights can save you money. Duke Energy also suggests raising the thermostat to the highest comfortable setting, and to prevent your home from getting too hot, avoid using the oven and cook outside. Brooks says making a few adjustments like this can help you keep your power bill down during the hottest days of the summer. And the new Live Oak Bank Pavilion at Riverfront Park in downtown Wilmington is leaving its mark in an unexpected way: trash. The amount of litter after the recent concert by the band Widespread Panic has Cape Fear River Watch asking for volunteers to clean up after the next show. A cleanup is planned this Sunday from 9 to 11 a.m. after Saturday night's show. The organization says Live Nation is taking steps to prevent large-scale littering. After the Widespread Panic show, there was litter strewn for blocks. Sunday, volunteers will target nearby streets and storm drains. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Friday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Well, today's going to be the hottest day of the work week. We're going to see temperatures in the middle and upper 90s inland of the coast, and on the coastline, we're topping off in the low 90s. Unfortunately, though, not going to be feeling like that. When you factor in the humidity, we're going to see heat index values get into the triple digits, ranging anywhere between 105 to 110 degrees, so find ways to stay cool today. We have heat advisories in effect until 7 p.m. this evening. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Got the call to leave today. My team and I are going away. Where to, how long? Well, that's a need to know. You can bet on us, 'cause we're good to go. I'm a patriot. I bleed red, white, and blue. I'm a patriot.
Every Friday morning here on the Big Talker FM, just after 7:30, we tell you stories of service, bring in some of the difference makers in our community and across the country, helping and working with our veterans, whether it be those active duty serving our country, the many transitioning back to civilian life and trying to find purpose in their lives after dedicating portions of their life experience to our country through our armed forces. In fact, yesterday was able to catch up with my good buddy Rob Renz and Chase Roth, Signal Fire Media, to hear about some of the things that they've been up to, and they continue to grow their umbrella here locally. Of course, they host the Signal Fire radio show on Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. They're also involved in this circle of business owners who happen to be veterans and trying to grow that across our region as well. And want to give them a tip of the cap here this morning. It was great to catch up with them. We're all in. And anything we can do, of course, to promote, bring awareness, and call attention to the men and women who serve our country. For retired Sergeant First Class Confessor Bermudez Jr. And Private Dorian Bermudez and Captain Timothy Peters, watching their father's military service has helped inspire their own military careers. This past Father's Day, each took time to reflect on what stood out to them during their father's career and how their fathers have supported them as they, too, have joined the military. Facing the draft while living in Puerto Rico, Confessor Bermudez Sr. Decided to go to an Air Force recruiter's office in 1969. What he thought would be an enlistment of a few years led to a 24-year career in the military. His son serving in the Army for 20 years, and his grandson now serving in our armed forces. Retired Sergeant First Class Confessor Bermudez Jr. grew up in Fayetteville because of his father's choice. Bermudez Sr., who was an engineer in the Air Force until 1987, was stationed at Pope Air Force Base shortly after his son was born in Panama in 1975. He would serve there for the remainder of his career. My father used to take me to Pope when it had a big air show every year, Bermudez Jr. said. There were Thunderbirds and so many static displays. You could see paratroopers jump out of the back of C-130s, kind of like All-American Week. Years later, Bermudez Jr. took his own kids to All-American Week. His eldest son, 19-year-old Private Dorian Bermudez, is now the third generation of Bermudez men serving in the military. After graduating from Berrien Baptist Academy, Confessor Bermudez Jr. joined the Army in April 1997 with Korea as his first duty station. I didn't want to sit around, Bermudez Jr. said. My youngest sister had lupus, and I saw that my dad had actually extended his military time to make sure that she could see the best doctors. Bermudez Jr., now a father of 6, said as he got older and thought about his future, he wanted to be able to provide for his future family in the same way. After a year serving in Korea, he received orders to go to Fort Drum, New York. After completing airborne school in October 1998, Bermudez Jr. returned in December to Fort Bragg, where he was assigned to the 3rd Battalion, 319th Field Artillery Regiment, 82nd Airborne Division. He was a mechanic. He was with the division for 4 years until his enlistment came up and he decided to join the U.S. Army Special Operations Command. He remained on airborne status for about 17 years. During his time in the Army, Bermudez Jr. went on 3 deployments to Afghanistan. He retired from the Army in April 2017 after 20 years of service. About a year later, the Army would have another Bermudez joining its ranks. Dorian Bermudez, who was born in the old Womack Army Medical Center building, joined in August 2018 shortly after graduating from Overhills High School. I remember a couple of times watching him jump, and it had some influence on me joining, seeing all the amazing things he was able to do and what he's done. Dorian Bermudez said of his father, it was like looking up to a hero. Bermudez Jr. said he remembers his son asking during his senior year as he was debating what to do after graduation and what led his father to the Army. Bermudez Jr. told his son that he joined for the independence and that after basic training, he knew he would have self-discipline, wouldn't have to depend on his parents, and would have money in his pocket. The discussion helped Dorian Bermudez decide what he wanted to join the Army to have a stable career in his own life. After graduating from basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and completing advanced individual training in Georgia, Dorian Bermudez learned his first assignment would be Fort Bragg. He returned to his hometown in March, serving in the same division his father once served. Dorian Bermudez is working with satellite communications for the 82nd Combat Aviation Brigade. He now has physical training near the same 82nd Airborne Division water tower his father did during his time with the division. Before I decided I was going to join the Army, I don't ever really remember talking too much about the Army with my dad, Dorian said. But now he's told me how things such as training would be, and it's kind of been eye-opening to have a better understanding of how grandfather and dad had to do things. Bermudez Jr. said he's proud of his son's discipline and that he's already earned his shooting expert badge. I never imagined he'd be willing to put his own life on the line, and to be able to hear him talk about his friends and the friends he's made, it reminds me of me being in that position, Bermudez Jr. said. The fact we both have served in the 82nd, to be able to know that both of us have worn the patch, it's pretty neat. And Dorian Bermudez isn't Bermudez Jr.'s only son who seems to have an interest in the military. He has another son who turns 14 this month, is expressing interest in serving with the U.S. Special Operations Command. Bermudez Jr. said the biggest piece of advice he shared with his older son is to make good friends who are bettering themselves and want to further their career. But at the same time, Bermudez Jr. says he pulls back a little bit to make sure his son is developing relationships in his own way while supporting him just as his father, who now lives in Greensboro, as he did it for him. Captain Timothy Peters graduated from 71st High School in 2004 when his dad, retired Master Sergeant Derek Davis, was stationed at Fort Bragg. For me in particular, being able to see my dad shine his boots at night in preparation for an inspection and looking for a model soldier by being physically fit and the level of discipline that was instilled in him is something that sticks out, Peters said. From an early age, Peters said the military taught him flexibility on how to adapt, as he attended 5 military schools or elementary schools, 4 middle schools, and 3 high schools during his parents' military careers. Inspired by his parents' service, Peters earned an ROTC scholarship to go to college and was commissioned as an officer in 2008. My dad was there to give me my first salute, Peters said. Graduating at the top of his class, he was selected to attend airborne school in 2009 at Fort Benning, Georgia. Something he and his classmates remember even 10 years later. I think the reward was that once we both landed safely on the ground, I knew that my dad had jumped with me. I'm sure in a million of years, neither one of us could have imagined what it would have been like to afford that opportunity. His father, who was a jump master, retired in 2013 after almost 22 years of military service that included multiple combat tours to Iraq and Afghanistan. After Peters spent some time at Fort Bragg, he was assigned to the 101st Airborne Division at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where both his parents had been stationed. He is currently with the headquarters, Department of the Army at the Pentagon. Throughout his career, Peters said his father has been there to encourage him and has taught him tenacity, perseverance, and to always be competent, capable, and committed. Even when I was a second lieutenant in Korea at the age of 22, being away from my family and responsible for 60-plus soldiers, I was able to pick up the phone and call my dad, Peters said. It gave me the opportunity to look at things through a non-commissioned officer perspective, and my dad has always been transparent and forthcoming with me. So he's going to tell me if I'm wrong and if I need to take ownership as a leader. Today, we celebrate 3 generations of military service to the Bermudez family and the family of Captain Timothy Peters, who is a second-generation commissioned officer now in the U.S. Army. They today highlight our Freedom Friday segment on the Big Talker FM, as every Friday, just after 7:30, we give a big salute to those who serve our country.
I got the call to leave today. My team and I are gone away. Where to, how long? Well, that's a need to know. You can bet on us, 'cause we're good to go. I'm a patriot. I bleed red, white, and blue. I'm a patriot, American through and through. And I'll fight for this land I love, from the sea, the ground, or from high above. I'm a patriot. It's tough at home, but they know the drill. We've been doing it for years. Goodbyes at the terminal gate, little faces washed with tears. Well, it's plain to see it's my family they pay a price to, and it shows. It's the fear in their eyes, it's my baby's cries, praying that I come back home. I'm a patriot. I bleed red, white, and blue. I'm a patriot, American through and through. And I'll fight for this land I love, from the sea, the ground, or from high above, 'cause I'm a patriot. Folks always ask me how it feels defending my country. I'm proud to fight for the stars and stripes, 'cause freedom isn't free.
I'm Rob Renz, Marine Corps veteran, entrepreneur, and local business owner. Join me and my buddies on Monday from 6 to 7 for Signal Fire Radio, where we discuss how to successfully transition from the military and become a Signal Fire in your community. That's Signal Fire Radio, Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. on 106.7 The Big Talk.
Oh, according to research, 82% of people remember radio ads. That means that 82% of you listening right now will remember that this is an ad for ZipRecruiter. If you're hiring, 82% of you will recall that ZipRecruiter makes hiring faster and easier. And 82% of you will note that you can try ZipRecruiter for free today. But you have to go to ZipRecruiter.com/free. Yes, free. 82% of you will keep in mind that ZipRecruiter's technology finds qualified people for your job and actively invites them to apply.
Is that you? Who are you talking to?
82% of you will also know that I, live with my mom. But the most important thing to note is that ZipRecruiter works. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Will you be part of the 82% who remember where you can try ZipRecruiter for free? It's ZipRecruiter.com/free. Again, that exclusive link is ZipRecruiter.com/free. How much? Free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
This is Mark Markley, your host of Recovering Hope. I hope you can tune in this and every Wednesday evening from 6 to 7 and Sunday mornings at 10 to listen to real stories of real hope to recover from drug addiction and how so many have turned tragedies into helping others to know there is hope. You can listen to podcasts of previous shows or contact me at recoveringhope.org.
Mic check, mic check. It's Yael Ossowski here, Deputy Director of the Consumer Choice Center. You'll hear me every Friday at 9:30 on the Mornings with Joe Catanacci Show, giving you the latest in consumer news, analysis, and political topics to make sure you get your consumer fix. Then hear me and my radio partner in crime, David Clement, on the Consumer Choice Radio Show, Saturdays at 10. Only here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Acoustic wave therapy at the Frank Institute is a revolutionary treatment for inflammation, issues of blood flow, and is a solution for the constant suffering of chronic pain. Through the localized transmission of sound waves, stem cells are stimulated to bring about restored blood flow, vascular regeneration, and the disbursement of pain receptors to affected areas. If you've been told that your issues could not be treated without surgery or prescription, give us a call. Non-invasive, non-surgical, and prescription-free. Acoustic wave therapy is only available at the Frank Institute. Call today, 910-679-8534, and ask about acoustic wave therapy.
Hoping that some of the folks out there that proposed, supported, advocated, and then defended the $20+ million taxpayer-funded amphitheater down the way from us here on the river. Hope those folks and those in the private sector making a pretty penny in our area off of that amphitheater through the deals that they were able to negotiate with our city for the management rights of that amphitheater. Hopefully they're helping the volunteers with the Cape Fear River Watch this weekend in their efforts to clean up the area near the amphitheater as it remains littered with, balloons. Yeah, the balloons that, some fill up with, I guess it's CO2, and then they huff it and then dispose of it, on the lawn and then into the marsh and into the river, along with all the beer cans and cigarette butts that filled up the amphitheater a week and a half ago. We've got volunteers that are having to go clean it up. Somehow, some way, I guess the city forgot, want to include and the management company in running the shows. I guess they thought that limited trash cans would work out better for them at the venue with 7,000 people there for 3 straight nights. No trash cans, and, after it's all done and it's trashed, let's get some volunteers to go clean it up. So we'll see if some additional costs are coming down the pike here in the not so distant future. Well, we'll see if you'll be paying for that, for the cleanup. So somehow, some way, the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, over the last couple of days in reinstating her mask mandate if you're on the floor of the U.S. House and in Congress up in Washington, D.C., somehow, some way, over the last couple of days, she's found the time to put forward, requirements and mandates, along with the potential for fining her colleagues in Congress for mask noncompliance on the floor of the House of Representatives in Congress. Somehow, some way, she found the time over the last few days to impose those mandates, but somehow she could not be bothered to request additional security and law enforcement presence when advised in the days leading up to January 6th, which, again, made-for-TV event this past week with the law enforcement officers and the crying and the sobbing by many in Congress as to the riot that took place earlier this year. We'll fine you, and hell, we'll arrest you if you're not wearing a mask on the floor of the House. But 100,000 people down the street, more than that by some estimations, 800 or so of those folks embedded with professional protesters, anarchists, and those who, just want to destruct and destroy, head on over to the Capitol as the lawmakers are certifying the presidential election for the United States of America. And, we've got about 5 or 6 security guards out there and cops. Nothing to see here, despite all the warning signs and the advisements leading up to January 6th. No one talking about that, though, in the committee hearing from earlier this week. Glad to see the news conference that did not include any news back on Wednesday over at the sheriff's office here in New Hanover County. Glad to see the news conference that did not contain any news from Wednesday. Glad to see their plea to stop the violence worked out here in the city of Wilmington. Drive-by shooting yesterday. He killed one, critically injured another at 13th and Wooster around 5:30 last night. Another day, another murder here in the city of Wilmington. But at least now, it only took a couple of dead bodies in Ogden, another one on the street of Wooster yesterday. It only took 3 murders in the last week to alert the public as to what we've been telling you for the last 7 days. Well, this isn't going to stop. And that when this sort of violence amongst gangbangers bubbles up to the surface, well, it could be a long, hot couple of nights with the summer heat. And maybe a long couple of weeks. And that's, in fact, what the captain who spoke yesterday to local media told us while at the scene of another homicide here in the city of Wilmington. Well, one of the families of the girl that was killed last week up in Ogden, they're speaking out. And, well, of course, in shock and, not even yet to the grieving point, still probably in a state of shock, they spoke to the media this week. And they say, well, while the CEO of True Colors Brewing may have not pulled the trigger, they say he set the stage for a situation that claimed their daughter's life. I feel that his program, what he said was supposed to help, is actually hurting. Putting together a concept of bringing active rival gang members together to work under the same roof with the mission of reducing gang violence, well, we're seeing the opposite effect. Who would have thought? She believes gang violence in Wilmington has increased since this company started interfering with an already volatile dynamic between rivals on the street. Details as to what played out, of course, up in Ogden last week, still very limited. Family says you take a lot of young kids from different areas of town, different gangs. They don't know each other. You put them all in one building. You're paying them, and you want them to stay in the gang while working? You can't live two lives like that. One has to go. The older brother of the young woman who was killed at the home of the COO of True Colors. An unusual business plan. And as we have heard, well, the recipients of massive amounts of money to get this thing off the ground. It's been a couple of years since they launched this, and they have yet to bring one can of beer to the market for sale. And as we highlighted earlier this week, you get into this business, well, there are oftentimes just two ways out. And, we can get into why, are you involved with validated gang members of the highest level? But maybe that's a story for another time. As we try and show a little compassion for these families as they deal with the loss of their loved ones. But we've seen it all over the country in the past year, particularly within our city, an uptick in crime related to gang activity. And then you've got some folks here who still feel that this for-profit business can ultimately help work to calm things down when violence ramps up. And they say, well, it's just cyclical. Let's just deal with it. Dodge, duck, dive, and dodge when you can. And if not, just, pray for the best. I guess that's where we're at. No word yet on what played out yesterday as police responded to the drive-by shooting at 13th and Wooster. 2 female gunshot victims were found, one lying on the sidewalk. She succumbed to her injuries a short time later. The other in critical condition at the hospital. Going back to Saturday, the third person who was shot, chest, shoulder. Well, we know what the shooter's intentions were there when you're shooting people in the chest and the shoulder after murdering 2 others. That victim apparently is okay and has been released from the hospital. Still no word on her identity or role in any of this, as it's an ongoing investigation. But let's have a news conference with no news earlier this week to then bring out the families of those who lost loved ones to plea to stop the violence. Like a broken record. Chad Adams going to join us after the top of the hour break. We'll get into the word salad that the King delivered us yesterday, because as this new school year looms, this debate over mask mandates is bringing the worst out in us, stirring up anger and, of course, confusion. Haven't we all been confused a bit over the last year? Follow the data and the science, right? And the governor now saying, well, we all know what to do, so don't mind me over here. I'm just going to step aside after a year of moving forward with executive orders that, well, it was my way or the highway sort of way of thinking for the governor for a year and a half. And now it's, well, you know what to do. We're going to get out of the way. Not pushing a requirement for businesses, but a strong recommendation that businesses statewide verify whether their employees are vaccinated, and if not, require them to wear masks and take weekly virus tests. Not a requirement, but a strong recommendation to require businesses to press their employees to get vaccinated, wear masks, and take weekly tests. This state mask mandate going to expire today as scheduled. But the new CDC recommendations call for all K through 12 students, faculty, staff to wear masks regardless of your vaccination status. So what is it? I think he's come to the grips with the fact that the ship has sailed on mask mandates. People don't want them. We've seen defiance at many board meetings across the state in terms of education. So let's focus on vaccine mandates and let's start to pit citizens against each other because what my executive orders, and not a little hesitant to continue to move forward with it. Chad Adams will get his take on it next.
Keeping Oak Island informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
The Justice Department threatening to sue the state over Governor Abbott's executive order allowing state troopers to stop and turn around vehicles carrying illegal immigrants.
In a letter, Attorney General Merrick Garland told Abbott his order is both dangerous and unlawful. Garland added that Texas has no authority to interfere with the federal government's broad powers of immigration. Abbott issued the directive Wednesday. The order allows the Texas Department of Public Safety to stop any vehicle upon reasonable suspicion that it is providing ground transportation to a group of migrants.
Correspondent Mike Rossier, Abbott says the Biden administration to blame for an unprecedented crisis with the flood of illegal aliens fueling a devastating spread of COVID-19. Japan facing a record surge of infections, expanding a state of emergency to 4 more areas in addition to Tokyo.
Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga says infections are expanding in the Tokyo and western metropolitan areas at an enormous speed that he says we've never experienced before, adding if the spike continues at the current pace with the spread of the more contagious Delta variant, Japan's medical system could collapse.
That's correspondent Charles De Ledesma. Suspected tornadoes cutting a path of destruction across several states, including Pennsylvania and Ohio last evening. Northeast of Philadelphia, at least one twister wrecked homes and businesses, injuring 5 people in Bensalem Township.
All 5 individuals are not life-threatening and not critical in nature. All seem to be minor.
Bensalem's public safety director talking with WPBI. Wintersville, Ohio was hit. Property damage, but no reports of any injuries there. On Wall Street this morning, Dow futures are down 112 points. NASDAQ futures off 164 points, and the S&P futures are down 29. More on these stories at townhall.com.
We call him Willy Wonka. He's a chocolate lab. His belly itched, and he would actually lay in the grass and scoot across it to scratch. And Sheba, his sister, she scratched at her ears real bad, and she shook her head so much, she wound up with cauliflower ears.
DINOVITE.com. Dinovite is nutrition.
When we first got the Dinovite, they cleaned the bowls up real good. Her ears, they're a whole lot better. Wonka, his belly, it's all really cleaned up. He flops over and lays on his back and just kicks his legs, and I call it his happy dance. They look good and even smell good in between baths. You should give your dogs Dinovite before something happens. And that's kind of like preventative maintenance.
Dinovite for life.
It makes them healthier and happier.
You won't believe how happy your dog will be.
And your dogs will love it just like mine do.
DINOVITE.com.
Europe emerged from a double-dip recession in the second quarter with stronger than expected growth of 2% over the previous quarter.
The new figures represent a partial recovery as the easing of health-related restrictions allowed the resumption of activity that had been curtailed. The growth in the second quarter was especially strong, approaching 3% in Spain and Italy, 2 countries where the economic impact of the pandemic has been very severe. Portugal and Austria recorded even stronger growth. However, the Eurozone economy is still 3% smaller than its pre-pandemic peak in late 2019. And the 2 largest individual economies in the region, Germany and France, have a shortfall that's somewhat larger than that.
The BBC's Andrew Walker. Food delivery platform Deliveroo says it's considering closing its operations in Spain ahead of a deadline to comply with a new law requiring it to hire workers currently freelancing for the company. News and analysis, townhall.com. What to do about airline passengers behaving badly? Airline personnel with some suggestions.
About 1/5 of flight attendants say they've gotten into a physical incident with a passenger this year. That's according to a survey by their union. The Association of Flight Attendants says it wants people who act up during flights to face criminal prosecution, not just fines. Airlines have reported more than 3,600 cases of unruly passengers this year. Disputes over face masks are the most common trigger. Federal rules require face masks on planes until mid-September. The Flight Attendants Union says alcohol is another big factor for confrontations. The union represents flight attendants at United, Alaska, Spirit, and several smaller carriers. Keith Peters reporting.
An oil tanker linked to an Israeli billionaire reportedly has been attacked off the coast of Oman and the Arabian Sea. Few details currently available. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
Our friend Chad Adams joins us every Friday morning inside this 8 o'clock block. Enjoying his Friday morning across the river in Brunswick County, one of the fastest growing areas in all of the country. Will we ever see a slowdown? I mean, writing on the wall, obviously, with labor shortages, inflation, that's where it's at. Builders having problems, putting the sticks up and getting new homes on the market. Inventory remains low. Who knows where this ship is sailing to in the next couple of months. Doesn't really instill any sort of confidence in the American consumer, obviously, with all of the uncertainty going on and, of course, the divide and conquer tactics that we see on a daily basis being put forth by, all political parties, particularly up in Washington, D.C. Chad, it's a pleasure. I hope you're enjoying your morning. I know you've had some family in town this week. I hope you've been able to have a great, memorable experience with them over the last few days. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Yeah, it's been an interesting week. I've had my family, my wife's family. And it's been an interesting week. But I tell you, when you compare where other folks live, whether it's in Italy, where you see this massive, they're more socialist in Italy than they realize they are, but at the same time there's a lot of pushback. I mean, this vaccine mandatory kind of mentality in Europe is causing all sorts of retaliation that's going on over there. The way, and we can get into that later. But yeah, Brunswick County, a great county, a lot of going. It's got so many advantages that a county inland like Columbus doesn't have. And if there's going to be a problem in Brunswick, it'll probably come from a lack of leadership at the top. It's probably going to come from, a network of people that have done business together for decades that, you end up developing kind of a good old boy network. And so if there's anything that happens there, it's the comfort that people, they don't realize how well they have it, and they get very comfortable and they don't look ahead. And they get much more obsessed with being in power than understanding what that means. And so we see that. You've seen that in Wilmington. You see that in many successful counties where they have a great run. And then some places they realize how great they have it. They take advantage of that, and they become stronger, more free, and better instead of more restrictive and putting power in the hands of fewer and fewer people and not taking on difficult challenges. Brunswick's very comfortable right now. So it's not looking ahead as much as it probably should be, and we'll see. Though it's still a great place to be. It still has its destiny in its hands. It can be a great county, or it can be a county that's really great because of the beaches.
No doubt, the area has been found by the rest of America. So more and more people, as they vacation here, they visit here for the first time, they come here for a wedding or some sort of event. It's like a black hole, I call it. Once you come here, it's very difficult to leave, one reason or the other.
Sure. And one of the weirdest things right now in this post-COVID, Roy Cooper extended benefits kind of world is finding people to work. So the great deal of the anger is this population swells down here at the coast. And yet you've got fewer restaurants open for fewer days a week. And so the people get angry at the restaurants. It's really not the restaurant. It's the people staying home making 60, 70, 80% of what they would make because they don't want to work. And so that's created quite a dilemma this summer, especially for people who live here, can't, go to eat anywhere at all.
Chad, why, in your mind, over the past 15 or so months and more now, did the governor kind of go at it as a my way or the highway sort of approach with his executive orders, his mandates, the restrictions that were in place, really just following the lead of many of the other states that went down the pathway before he made these sorts of announcements? And now, yesterday, he comes out and basically every response to a question from a reporter was, well, we all know what to do, so I'm just kind of stepping aside. Why the different approach here 16 months in?
Well, you absolutely can believe, if you look nationally or internationally, you can see that the political left really does like the raw expression of power. So a governor, during a time of crisis, enacted very tough executive orders, over 200 executive orders, the most of any governor in history. And it was kind of popular then. People wanted that sense of they wanted to feel secure or more safe. But as this wore on and people realized it's much more survivable, treatments have gotten better, there are multiple vaccines on the market, we find that people want their freedom back. So the governor was torn yesterday. It was kind of interesting because I had a school board meeting yesterday with our charter school, and part of the discussion is, what's the governor going to do? What's he going to do to schools? But what I had absolutely believed before, during, and after that press conference yesterday was that the governor is put in a position where he has no real accomplishments. He hasn't signed any budgets. He has nothing, but he has been the governor during COVID, executive orders. But now the desire for that power, there's a group of Democrats that really wanted him to come out and mask mandate, that wanted him to, a very low percentage. And a lot of parents, look, when we get letters and other people get letters, there's probably 10% of parents and the more hardened left that wants kids to be masked up 24/7. They want them in the schools masked up. They want them masked up. They really believe that this masking is going to save the world or protect the unvaccinated from the vaccinated. I don't know, but they want kids in masks. But the vast majority of people want the option. They look at the risk and they say, look, I got vaccinated. My kids are fine. It's not going to hurt them. So let's get out there and get on with teaching our kids and get them in school. There are a lot of people that still want the kids to learn virtually. They don't, that's unbelievable, the damage it's doing to kids by not letting them socialize. So the governor was put in a precarious situation yesterday where he did everything but make it mandatory. Notice he said he recommends that schools mask. He doesn't want the responsibility of forcing them to do so because he would look terrible if he did that. He wants them to act. Then he turned all the counties and said, well, there are hot spots and no hot spots, so they need to. But he could have ordered that if it's a red county, meaning a lot more cases, that they are forced to. He didn't. He backed off of that. He wants someone else to take the responsibility, but he wants to seem like a governor that is in control of the situation. He's not. He hasn't been. What's happening is there's more natural immunity out there. There's more people getting vaccinated out there. It's getting better. The death rate, notice that they don't talk much about the death rate. The death rate from this thing has plummeted, and that's great news. Fewer people in hospitals. There are some still going. But if you take out all the comorbidities, the people who have diabetes, that are overweight, that have multiple health conditions, the number of healthy people getting sick and having distressful times, almost non-existent, especially under the age of about 24. If you look at that, that's almost non-existent at all. So the fear is retreating. There's still some people who want to live in fear, but you're more likely to get hit by lightning or get attacked by a shark or get in a serious car accident than you are to get seriously ill with COVID now. That's great news. So the governor, yesterday kind of punted and said, yeah, I really want everyone to mask up, and I'm not going to mandate. I want to mandate my people do it. But there's a lot of pushback even in health communities. There's some people that don't want to. It's still a choice for now. We'll see how it plays out. The governor was kind of an odd press conference yesterday where he kind of stepped back and said, well, I really want everyone to do what I want them to do, but I'm going to stop short of telling them to.
Chad Adams with us here this morning, just highlighting, of course, yesterday's news conference from our king and the governor, Roy Cooper. And, it was kind of just a mix of, word salad with some croutons on top and dressing on the side as far as, his approach to where, we've been and where we are today. If, again, the fear of this variant, and we know that this thing's going to mutate into several different sorts of variants as we move into the future, because that's what the science tells us about every sort of virus that has moved through the history of time across the world. And at one point or another, we're going to have to put the fear aside and continue to just move forward. And in fact, that's kind of the mindset, I think, Chad, overall. Because yesterday I had a conversation with a teacher in the area, and a teacher who she and I disagree probably on everything. She's out to the left of La La Land, and she was like, right before the news conference, I can't wear a mask inside the school for all day, every day. It was the worst thing that I've probably ever experienced. Just the mask, let alone getting kids to pay attention in the classroom, having that additional hurdle and saying, we just need to make this optional. That was, one viewpoint from one teacher who, again, I disagree with on many issues politically, but we came to an agreement on that specific topic.
Well, it's become wildly unpopular, even with teachers. So you have Randy Weingarten, one of the leaders of the largest teachers unions out there, saying, we're basically trying to threaten that if they don't make masks mandatory, that teachers aren't going to go back to school. And that's just foolish. They will. I mean, unless they're very politically motivated, they will. The goal here, and this is the legitimate question I think to ask, is the goal to have zero cases of COVID? And the answer to that is no. You're just not going to get there. You're not going to get to where there's zero cases of COVID. That's just unrealistic. It's not going to happen. The goal should be to have a disease that's part of the multiple levels of pathogens that we deal with, to make it livable, treatable, a vaccine that works and is approved by the FDA. That should be the goal, is to realize, okay, this is an illness that's going to be with us, kind of like the common cold, kind of like the flu, kind of like chickenpox, that we can deal with and that has great treatments available. And we know who's at risk for them. That's the goal. And if that's the goal, then we need to just, quit. Part of what makes the anti-vaccine crowd so suspicious is this overwhelming desire to mandate and force. If it's such a great thing, then people will choose to get it. And I think that as we move through with FDA approval, I think people are going to realize there isn't a massive conspiracy here, that it's not a death cult, they're not putting microchips in people. I mean, I've seen some of the wildest conspiracy theories on the right about this, on the far, far right. And unfortunately, the people on the left that push so hard feed the conspiracies. And so then we don't have any common ground. And the CDC has heard itself. The World Health Organization has heard itself. There's been so many contrarian viewpoints. And they say, it's evolving science. No, it's not. The science of viruses and immunology hasn't really changed at all. We know a lot more, and the more we know, the better it gets. But the science didn't change. The science stayed consistent. It usually does. We just have to learn more about it. But no mask, and Fauci. And what we really should be concerned about, Joe, is where the hell did this thing come from? How did this pathogen become such a situation? What did it come from the lab? And more people believe it did. The administration, the Biden administration, if it wants more credibility, should be pounding the podium every day and getting folks out there and saying, we need to get to the bottom of this so it never happens again. Find out where the hell this thing came from and get to the bottom of it. But it's more about what we do, reacting to it, than getting to the bottom of what happened.
Chad, got no media coverage over the past week. The fact that some lunatics decided that they were going to protest at one of the properties of Senator Tom Tillis. These protests outside of his home near Lake Norman continued overnight. 3 people issued trespassing citations for going up near his front door. And then, as the report highlights, these people just then jumped on a shuttle bus and took off. These organizations that are pushing this new way of intimidation towards our elected officials, it's going to end up with somebody getting killed or something going on where, and we've seen it before. Why does the media kind of tend to ignore these incidents that we see becoming more frequent across the country?
That's bizarre. Now, that's fine. You want to protest at his offices. You want to disagree with him, write letters. do it in the public forum. But these people are very cowardly, and they want to use intimidation and fear. They think, if I tell you I know where you live, Joe, I'm going to go to your house, and I know you have a daughter in there. I know about your dog. This kind of fear that the left likes to do, they like to say they're these tolerant, loving people. They're not. Ultra-leftists are terrorists in many ways, and they want to inflict fear and terror in your life. They want to go to your home, your house. That should be sacrosanct. And in North Carolina and many other states, if you go after a public official in certain ways, it's called communicating a threat. It's regardless of whether you're Democrat or Republican, if you communicate a threat to those people, you can go to jail. And so I don't know why the media is reluctant to cover these wackadoos and point out the kind of people they really are. They're thugs. They're paid often. They're paid thugs to come in from other states. We see this in protests in North Carolina. So many of them are loaded up on buses from other states. They're paid thugs. And this is the kind of stuff we shouldn't tolerate anymore, because it does get very scary and very alarming. It was kind of like we had this hearing this past week on what happened in D.C. on January 6th, using words like terrorist and using words on TV that we hadn't heard. And, the portrayal, it's horrible what happened. No one's going to say what happened was a great thing. It wasn't. But if you juxtapose that against the dozens of cops that were killed across the nation last year, and the billions of dollars in damage, and the absolute anarchy that reigned in our streets, and the creation of an autonomous zone that declared basically it wasn't part of the country anymore, and yet there's not been a single hearing about any of that. And to me, all of those were insurrectionist type activities as well that we don't cover. So when you become so hyper partisan, the partisans lose credibility. If they wanted to make January 6th something that was credible, they needed to go after all of it and see why this is happening in America. And it's unfortunate they're only interested in being very partisan.
Chad, one of the trolls that you and I share on social media asked me why I have created, going back into my old days working in restaurants and bars, I have started my own 86 list in all of the different products that I typically consume and purchase that I have not been able to find on store shelves as of late. So I started this 86 list last Thursday because I couldn't not find gas at a few of the area gas stations I went to. The truck didn't show up. Over the weekend, I couldn't find my kids' brand of juice boxes at the local grocery store. Then it was, no cat litter at the pet store. Then it was, 0 brands of shorts, my waist size at one of the retail stores. It feels to me like the middle class is being eliminated, and one of our trolls says, "Well, it's just an inconvenience. Why are you even calling attention to all of this? It's a minor inconvenience. Go shop at another store." I'm like, I didn't even respond, and I said, "Well, before the blizzard comes, you're going to get some snowflakes, and then the avalanche, ensues afterwards." Is this, am I being too dramatic here by pointing this out to everyone?
Well, we kind of started the discussion talking about the number of people that aren't working in restaurants. We have a supply. Look, our market is a remarkable, the free market in itself is just a remarkably well-balanced, finely tuned machine that allows us to get pineapples from Costa Rica to your store for $1.99 or $1.69 if they're on sale. That's amazing if you think about that. It has to come from far away. It has to get on a ship, get here, go through a port, get inspected, get on a truck, get to your local grocery store through a distribution chain. So what happens when you have something over the past year is that's disrupted. And you find that the complexity of how those products are created, try getting chips for computers right now. It's nigh on impossible. If you're building a house, the price of lumber is finally returning normal, but it's not normal. Windows, appliances, try getting appliances. Try over the summer getting patio furniture. This is more than just an inconvenience. This was the disruption of the entirety of the free market. And so the fact that we can't get certain goods, we also have a problem with services. We have a dearth of truck drivers. We're missing thousands of truck drivers across this nation that they run the economy. I mean, they get products from point A to point B. We don't have that as much. So you're right. A lot of products missing. It's not just an inconvenience. It was a forced inconvenience caused by the government shutdowns that did not allow people to act responsibly and let companies kind of determine their own destiny there. And the lockdowns didn't work. The same troll that you talked about, he acted as if lockdowns were the end all. They were not. They did not work. They didn't stop the pathogen. They didn't stop the disease, and it moved on. And his excuse was always, well, it would have been worse. Well, we have examples of countries that didn't have lockdowns, and it wasn't worse. It's about the same. Maybe they peaked earlier, but the same peaks happened, the same valleys happened, and the same comebacks happened. So the free market, if anything that was beautiful about the pandemic, and there's very little that was, one, it was the resilience of the human spirit and the fact that we like to be social critters and we want to overcome obstacles. Number two is how beautiful this free market is and how amazing it is. The number of products that you see in your grocery store today, or Family Dollar, Dollar General, Walmart, Sam's, Food Line, whatever, is amazing relative to what it just was 60 years ago. The number of different, next time, if you ever want to see this on full display, walk into your supermarket and look at the cereal selection. The cereal selection is dizzying. It takes an entire row, and you've got so many dizzying choices, and all of those have products in them that come from all over the world and have to be mass-produced, boxed, and shipped. That's how amazing it is, but it's also very delicate, and it took very little to disrupt that. And you know, if you ever want to read a good book, I think it's the 1 Second After is the name of the book. He's a guy in Black Mountain, William Forston, who wrote the book, and he has a really good explanation about the free market that's beautiful like that. But it's delicate, and it can be disrupted, as we're seeing now.
Chad, it's always a pleasure, my friend. I'm glad you got to enjoy some family time this week. Oh, boy, your family, your wife's family, that must have been one heck of a time you all had.
Well, you find out it's more about, like, instead of spending that quality time that so many people think you're going to do, you end up spending time figuring out what you're going to spend time doing.
Yeah, oh yeah, and you're the tour guide.
I'm going to help both. I'm going to just look at the sky for a little while.
That's it. We'll enjoy
your weekend, Joe.
And you do as well. Great to have our friend Chad Adams with us every Friday morning inside this 8 o'clock block. Great perspective as always, and been a good friend of mine for a long time here in this area. We're 27 minutes past the hour. Cameron Moore going to be with us here in just a bit. The latest edition of our Construction Connection segment, the only platform across southeastern North Carolina highlighting one of the top issues facing our region, the place we call home. We live where many of those out there here this morning vacation. And Cameron, of course, provides us a little sneak peek behind the curtain as far as the construction industry grows, growth, development, what's kind of on the horizon. Talking with someone a little while ago about the housing market and, whether or not we should sell and maybe relocate to a different part of our region. We're going to get what we have now for our buck if we do end up selling. The realtors and people I talk to say, well, this market is going to continue to sizzle, though writing on the wall with the economy slowing and with inflation, with people a little hesitant, are we going to see the market when it comes to real estate move towards a situation as we did, say, in 2008? That was created again by predatory lending and the banks, pretty much giving anyone and everyone a mortgage and a home and a loan. We saw it come crashing down in 2008, 2009. Are we going to move towards that direction here? Or are we going to continue, given the area we live in, are we going to continue to sizzle? Well, we'll get Cameron's thoughts on that and other topics of interest facing our area related to construction, growth, and development when we pick up our Construction Connection segment on the Big Talker FM here in just a few minutes. 910-299-7535 is our number. If you'd like to call into the program, we'll be back.
When your AC stops, don't despair. Just go.
Go where? The South Pole?
Go Southern Comfort Heating and Air. For preventive maintenance, service, and repair, go there.
Where?
Southern Comfort Heating and Air.
Are they fair?
Fair and square. Low prices, speedy service, and technicians who care. When your AC stops, don't stare. Go there.
Is there a website you can share?
Go southerncomfort.com. If you go anywhere else, beware.
I swear.
Call 910-524-7609.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint Faith and Personal Development. Join myself and Kevin Adams every Saturday and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Wilmington's Big Talker for a fun, uplifting conversation about the upside of upside-down living.
If you're anywhere near Oak Island, come check out Seaside Jewelers at 8801 East Oak Island Drive. They're on Oak Island. You're going to find the latest in Oak Island lighthouses, nautical charms, pendants. You're going to find bracelet, turtle charms, anything in the jewelry genre you need, you can get there. And if they don't have it, they'll find a way to get it for you. Come check out Seaside Jewelers at 8801 East Oak Island Drive. And if you tell them you heard it on the Big Talker FM, an extra 10% off your purchase, but only at Seaside Jewelers, 8801 East Oak Island Drive. The lowest prices in town. Come check us out today.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. The Biden administration has announced sweeping new pandemic rules for federal workers and some contractors. It is requiring that any federal civilian worker who does not attest to being fully vaccinated will be subject to universal masking, weekly testing, physical distancing from other employees, and restrictions on official travel. The Biden administration hopes this helps boost vaccination rates among millions of Americans who draw federal paychecks and sets an example for private employers around the country. Wilmington police are investigating a deadly drive-by shooting which happened in the 800 block of South 13th Street just before 5:30 last night. It left one woman dead and another critically injured. A spokesman says police are bolstering patrols in the area. The heat is rising, but that doesn't mean your energy bill has to. According to Duke Energy spokesman Jeff Brooks, simple tricks like making sure your air filters are clean, keeping the blinds closed, and turning off the lights can save you money. Duke Energy also suggests raising the thermostat to the highest comfortable setting, and to prevent your home from getting too hot, avoid using the oven and cook outside. Brooks says making a few adjustments like this can help you keep your power bill down during the hottest days of the summer. And the new Live Oak Bank Pavilion at Riverfront Park in downtown Wilmington is leaving its mark in an unexpected way: trash. The amount of litter after the recent concert by the band Widespread Panic has Cape Fear Riverwatch asking for volunteers to clean up after the next show. A cleanup is planned this Sunday from 9 to 11 a.m. after Saturday night's show. The organization says Live Nation is taking steps to prevent large-scale littering. After the Widespread Panic show, there was litter strewn for blocks. Sunday, volunteers will target nearby streets and storm drains. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Friday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Well, today's going to be the hottest day of the work week. We're going to see temperatures in the middle and upper 90s inland of the coast, and on the coastline, we're topping off in the low 90s. Unfortunately, though, not going to be feeling like that. When you factor in the humidity, we're going to see heat index values get into the triple digits, ranging anywhere between 105 to 110 degrees, so find ways to stay cool today. We have heat advisories in effect until 7 p.m. this evening. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Attention patriots, listen in to hear President Trump explain why Ted Budd is the right choice for United States Senate.
There's somebody that I think is very special, somebody that I've worked with, always been with me. This man's a great politician, but more importantly, he's somebody that loves the state of North Carolina. He loves the country. But this gentleman is going to be your next senator. He's going to be somebody that you're going to be so proud of. He will fight like hell. He will fight like nobody fights. And a lot of you don't know him that well, but you're going to know him Ted Budd.
I am giving him my complete and total endorsement. We're going to work with him. We're going to campaign with him. You can't pick people that have already lost 2 races. You can't pick people that have already lost 2 races and do not stand for our values. So I'm going with Congressman Ted Budd, complete and total endorsement.
I'm Ted Budd, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Ted Budd for Senate. See the video at tedbudd.com.
Twice a month on Fridays, we spend a good portion of our program highlighting a very important topic in our region, and that, of course, is surrounding growth, development related to the construction industry. In this partnership that we forged with the Wilmington Cape Fear Homebuilders Association like a year and a half ago, and it's amazing how many things that we've called attention to ahead of the curve that, well, the national news media, even local outlets, finally caught up with. We had been, well, discussing many of the topics that are now national headlines months ago. Not to toot our own horn, but, this is the only place locally, I would say maybe even across the state and nation, where you get, an unfiltered behind-the-scenes look into an industry that, that you may not know much about, which is why we're here, which is why this platform continues to grow, and our outreach through the community continues to elevate itself above the rest of the competition. And we thank Cameron Moore, Executive Officer with the Wilmington Cape Fear Homebuilders Association, for opening his ear to us a year and a half ago and engaging in the conversation. Cameron is with us here this morning after what seems to be kind of a rough week for Cameron. I don't know. Has it been a rough week, Cameron, for you? I'm just saying.
Just been a week.
I mean, you look good, but dang.
I appreciate it. It's just been a week.
It's been one of those weeks.
One of those weeks. Friday turning into a Monday already.
So, fuck. No. With that said, I've been having various conversations, as I do, with realtors, those in the commercial real estate market, builders. I've got a number of friends who work within the construction industry. And, there's this belief here in our area that, we're a little bit, in a different sort of, pathway as far as, where we are with the real estate market and the home building situation, and that we live in a place that is such a destination for many all across the country, as one of the fastest growing regions, in the nation, that, if there were to be a slowdown in the housing market, that we wouldn't see that here because we've been sizzling for so long. Right. To me, though, with all the writing on the wall, as far as the other chaos that is going outside of your industry and market, to me, eventually something, there's going to be a hoe that we're going to hit a wall. And do you see that, or are you hearing those sorts of things, or are we going to be, red hot for, the foreseeable future?
Well, I mean, I think the terminology a little bit is we are insulated, so to speak, here in Wilmington, in the Wilmington region, kind of buffered from some of the other national trends. And that's mainly due to us being a destination spot. We've talked about it time and time again on this show. People are moving here all the time, moving here every day. But it is an interesting phenomenon happening right now nationally, is what we're seeing. And so I was looking at a national article that just came out from the National Association of Home Builders, basically have high home prices reduce buyer interest in new homes. And what they are seeing is the trends, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit, is when will we hit the road? Well, when will we hit the line in the sand, so to speak, from the consumers, where either the frustration of trying to buy a new home has been so much, or either they've been outbid on every house that they've put a bid in, and just quite frankly kind of went back to the fence, so to speak. Kind of went back and said, you know what, we're going to pull back a little bit and take some more time, let this market kind of figure out what it's going to do. And nationally speaking, I think we've talked about it. When is that trend going to happen? And we're starting to see it from this NHB article. Fourth quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter of last year was very strong, particularly as we started to really come out of the pandemic in the sense of the real estate market, and kind of come out of it, but I guess started to have a better feel for what it was and kind of how to navigate through it, so to speak. But real estate, In 2020, Q1 was good, and then at the end of Q1, coming into Q2, quarter two, we really struggled, and then we rebounded really quick, sharply in Q3, Q4. Now we get into 2021, we saw Q1, quarter two, really, really strong as far as interest, home buying interest, sales, pricing, of course, going up. And not just, mainly the prices going up is a demand. It's a supply and demand model. I mean, it is a market-wise model, but also lumber prices and everything we've talked about, material prices, delays and stuff. But now what we're seeing a little bit is, the type of home buyers that are looking for a new home, that percentage is starting to drop a little bit. And it's interesting, Joe, because I think the last two shows, we've kind of had this conversation, trying to kind of figure out what's going on in the market a little bit. And over the last 2 weeks, I have had more conversations with local real estate agents, brokers in charge, and builders, to where some of them have seen a slowdown. I'm hearing that more and more, I guess I would say. But a slowdown, I want to put that into perspective. We're in 8th gear. There's 4 gears in the car. That's what we've been in. So we're going back basically to probably 6th gear. So we still have a really good residential construction market here. Even the commercial sector and multifamily sector, we still have a very strong economic model when it comes to construction. But I do think that we finally have reached a little bit of a peak in certain areas with certain builders of the Wilmington region, to where we are starting to see a little bit of a slowdown. And I think the slowdown is more of, and we talked about on the last show, these builders are actually to the point where they've got so many contracts. Or, Joe, you just bought a house from us. Well, I can't deliver your house until next summer. Next summer, I can get you in your new home. And it may be even in some cases, it may be, into next year. So I think a lot of this is the builders have taken on a little bit more, a few more contracts than they typically take on. Some of that is due to trying to make up for the losses that have been put in place because of the material cost. But a lot of it is the demand has been there at the same time. So a lot of the builders right now are kind of retreating, so to speak, to let's go ahead and build this portfolio out, make sure we can deliver these homes that we're under contract for. And then we'll do slow releases on lots, 10 to 20, as we get to that point. But let's just not have a bunch of lots out there and continue to take contracts right now when we know we're, 18 to 24 months out before delivering that product.
What's the role, from a consumer standpoint, in how they play into all of this? I was just talking with a guy a little earlier this morning. They downsized. They're looking to maybe buy a house out in the mountains, keep a townhouse here in the area. But every time they go to bid on a home, they're outbid. Sometimes at the tune of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 over asking price, and that has to get frustrating for somebody that wants to relocate or wants to get into a different home. But eventually, you got to figure that people just kind of throw up their hands and say enough is enough. I'm tired of all these headaches.
Well, and I think that's what it is. I think this article, to me, showcases the frustration in the market is really what it does. And it was going to come at some point because, this is a national article. It's looking at the Northeast. It's looking, pretty much Midwest here, Southeast, Northeast. And to me, when I read it again, I sense the frustration on the consumer side, to where either they've put in a over asking price and then got outbid again and again and again, and unfortunately have lost that house that they really, really wanted. And it's a shame that that's the market we're in. But it also comes back really to, Joe, what it comes back to is, I touched on earlier, supply and demand. We have to put more supply on the ground. The first time home buyer market here in the Wilmington region and right here in New Hanover County, it's not new construction. It's existing homes that were built in the 1970s to the 1985 and 1990s. That's our existing. That is your first time. So the first time home buyer that's out there that just moved here, maybe a couple just got married, just have 2 jobs, have the dual income, and actually have enough to make the payment and everything and do what they need to do. They're looking at homes, but they're looking at existing homes for that first time home buyer.
And having to put up a good portion more,
and those home prices have raised quite a bit. Laura and I, we've lived in the same house that we've bought. We're the anomaly. I've talked about it all the time. We should have moved 3 times already, but we've stayed in our house, and it's a 1979 ranch house. Doesn't have a lick of closet space in it, but we deal with it, so it is what it is. But I mean, our house is appreciated. I mean, double of what we paid for it. So at the same time, yes, we could. I'm in the same boat, and I would be in the same boat. We would be in the same boat if we were to sell our house. Yes, we would make a pretty good profit off the house, but then where am I going to go?
That's kind of where we're at in my own home. It was late '90s, early 2000s. I think our house was built, and a couple additions later, we're in a spot where we'd make a killing off the sale of that home. But where would we end up for what we make off of that?
Right. I do want to touch on though. I mean, when we talk about pricing and how much housing here in general, as far as prices have escalated, it is nothing compared to other markets. When we look at, California, New York, Florida, other areas of the country. I mean, my house in California would be essentially probably a $500,000 to $600,000 house. And granted, no one can't see my house as far as your listeners this morning, but let's just say
get an idea of.
Let's just say that it's not worth $500,000-$600,000.
Well, there's another thing. So your home in a different area of the country is $400,000. Those people are bringing that $400K here,
exactly,
and then they're getting what they want for $400K.
Exactly. So, again, everything is perspective. We still have a very, very good real estate market here. People are moving here every day. You look at what's happening downtown. We just got off a great weekend with the new concert venue here. We've got a lot of different things kind of happening within this community. And I think really this conversation is a good segue into some of the other things we're going to talk about today. The city of Wilmington working on the Unified Development Ordinance. We have been, we have been pressuring them to look at 3 items when it comes to housing, particularly within the city of Wilmington. And let's just think, take New Hanover County, the city of Wilmington. We're pretty much an urban environment already built out. So it's a lot of it's going to be infill development, but there are pockets to where we can do new construction as far as new single-family homes. Density, height, vertical construction, and diversity of housing. And when I mean diversity of housing, I mean being able to put duplexes, single-family homes, multifamily, townhomes, and even some commercial components within neighborhoods. It's going to prove to be a lot more beneficial on a lot of different fronts. But at the same time, we have been pushing those 3 terms now for, quite frankly, the last 5 years.
Well, we saw that in the news just this past week given that we've got municipal elections coming up, a lot of interested parties, meaning candidates looking to learn more, along with those who are currently in public office. I'm just noticing among those who are seeking, Wilmington City Council, for instance, they're posting a lot on their social media to bring attention to these sorts of things. In that it isn't, the peaches and cream sort of conversation that's, bubbly and, going to necessarily catch your attention. You kind of get into the weeds in some of this stuff, which is why, we feel that we can spend a little time here, given the platform that we have, to get into the weeds, because, knowledge is power, and it's good to have some information before you get on your keyboard and start spouting this, that, and the other about the building industry and construction. So talk about this, Unified Development Ordinance and, the Planning Commission considering, approval on this. And I guess maybe go back before we go forward. Talk about why they're redoing it, right, and, what we hope to achieve from this.
Sure. I mean, both the city and the county had development ordinances that were 35 plus years old. And when I mean development ordinances 35 years old, they have had amendments done to them over the course of 35 years, but they haven't had a complete overhaul. And in the county's case, there was zoning districts that they really needed to insert into their ordinance. And in late 2019, they did just that, inserted 7 new districts and modified one of the PD districts, which is a planned development district. And kind of set the stage for allowing for more density, more vertical construction, and also more diversity of housing. Everything that they had before was R15, R20. And what I mean by R15 and R20 is a 15,000 square foot minimum lot size or 20,000 square foot minimum lot size. Well, it's a very inefficient land use pattern when you think about 15,000. It's 43,560 as far as what an acre is. So you basically are at 2.2, 2.3 units per an acre. So you eat up land. It's not efficient. So county and the city were on the kind of the same glide path. They worked on a comprehensive plan, which is kind of the roadmap, so to speak, to get to a lot of the regulatory controls and policy controls. And so the city was on the same glide path. The city went in and actually did a complete overhaul where the county kind of did some strategic text amendments. And I'm bringing both of them up because they were on the same glide path and some of the same conversations were happening roughly at the same time. And again, to touch on too, the market really doesn't ever see a city limit line. You know, the real estate market, or really anything as far as market-wise, we don't really see a city limits line in the sand, so to speak. The market kind of goes where it goes. So with the city, they've done a complete rewrite of their code. It's been a little challenging to understand what's old and new because they have not been able to give us a strike line, underline, or kind of like a strike through. So it's been a little challenging to figure out some of the stuff in it. We're still working through it. And there's still some challenges that we have, our members have within the code itself. You know, a regulatory device such as that, particularly within the city, is always going to have some challenges. And you have certain districts. I mean, we have the historic district. We have the 1945 city corporate limit lines. We have all these things that have to kind of be fleshed out. But what we have been pushing for really when we talk about workforce housing and affordable housing is, again, those three items. And so now it's coming before, it's had roughly, I forget off the top of my head how many planning workshops we've had. We've had some private workshops with city staff on certain elements of the code. And then there's been more of a public workshop. And so the city council and the planning commission held 2 joint meetings. Last week was their last meeting down at the convention center, and essentially gave people, residents, the opportunity, businesses, whoever wanted to speak, the opportunity to come out and say their piece with the ordinance. Or did you like it? Do you hate it? Do you, revision, so to speak. And so now the planning commission will take it up this coming week. I believe they meet on Wednesday, Wednesday night, and they will take this item up, and they could move it forward to the city council, or they could hold one more planning commission meeting, depending on just how kind of they feel like where they're at structure-wise. There's still some items I think that needs to be tweaked. I think some of it, as far as tweaking it, needs to be kind of have a project, kind of go through the process of the regulatory controls to see really on paper if it works. And so those are always some of the challenges. Housing-wise, from our end, I still see some challenges a little bit. I think we're missing some opportunities. For example, in the R7, R3 and R5, it allows for townhomes. But when we get to the R7 district, it does not. And so we're still working on that a little bit. We believe that it should. So again, it comes back to that diversity of housing, density and stuff. So that's kind of where we are with the city. It will more than likely be adopted before we have municipal elections in November. That's kind of been the plan all along anyway, is to get this thing adopted. It's not on any kind of glide path as far as elections or anything, but it probably looking, so we're getting into August with the Planning Commission, probably looking at September, October-ish before the city council formally goes through the adoption process.
Going back to the old code that has been in place for decades, it had a lot of side notes and cliff notes and marks and crossouts, and a lot of what has it been like as a builder, someone in the industry, to have to adapt and adjust and do all these different sorts of things when you've got a document and an ordinance that goes in a million different directions. What kind of challenges has that presented?
Well, I mean, anytime you work with a code like that and something, there's a regulation, and that regulation starts to run kind of as a headwind, so to speak, with you with your project, you've got to either figure out 2 things to do, or really 3 things to do. You can either go through it by getting a text amendment to change it because it just doesn't make sense. You try to go around it by working the site plan and other methods, or you can go for the variance route and try to get a variance from the code. So there's kind of 3 opportunities you have there, but it does present challenges, and the challenges is not so much, a lot of it's time. It's delays in the project, trying to work through these conversations. And sometimes what we find is the regulatory nature of the city's code maybe doesn't match up with DOT's requirements or CFPUA requirements. And so other entities come into play, or CAMA requirements. Other entities come into play. And so when that happens, that's when everyone gets around the table and starts to try to figure out, okay, what can we do to maneuver this project, so to speak, through the process to get it to an approval.
What sort of stakeholders, other than yourself and members of the Planning Commission, city staff, who else has helped contribute into the crafting of this new UDO?
Sure. I mean, I know the historic district because you've got a lot of changes they're looking at downtown. Vertical construction height is always a big issue downtown. They have kind of the tiered level height platform. I know that the historic district, I know that Wilmington Downtown has been a part of it as well, those two organizations. I also know that residents, just regular people who live here within the city, came to the last public hearing and voiced their concerns. There's been the tree preservation folks. They've had some conversations within the ordinance as well. And one thing on the tree preservation, what we've kind of strived to do is match that to what we did with the county roughly, I guess, 10 months ago, give or take. And so there's some nuances in that as well. And again, that goes back to where the real estate market doesn't really ever see a city limit or county limit line. But everyone, I think, has had the opportunity. I do think the city has done a fairly good job of getting the notice out there. Postcards, you probably maybe got one at your house. I got one actually at my house, and I live in the county. I thought that was kind of interesting. But I even actually got one at work as well, because we are in the city at work. But everyone, I think, has had the opportunity. Changes in the code. I think overall there were some good things in the code that we currently have that we're losing actually in this code that have certainly frustrated some of the development community, particularly the CDMU district has basically gone away. And so we've had some challenges with that. That was really used very appropriately, I think, from the development community. I think there could have been some tweaks to that, but there was some debate about it, and it went away. And so, the proof of the ordinance is going to be when it's adopted, will the development community, as they start to build within the city, within this new code, what problems are we going to find with it? Again, you never really know where the problems lie until the implementation of the code.
And from a city standpoint, there's not much undeveloped land left in the city. So, needing an update, of course, given the fact that it hasn't been updated in 30 plus years, but, we're putting a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of work into all of this for, not much as far as, development goes within the city limits, of course.
And I'll give you, it actually came up. I think it was Holly Childs actually brought it up from the Wilmington downtown. Alleyways actually have become kind of a gathering place in some sense, especially the wider alleyways. You look at a lot of the different cities and stuff that utilize those to where you can put seating in alleyways. Yes, I realize it's probably an easement or in the public realm, so to speak, or a public right-of-way, perhaps, but alleyways themselves. So there is currently, you're allowed to pull the building all the way to the easement line of the alleyway. In other words, line to line. In the new code, they want you to set back 5 feet. Well, that means you just shrunk your building. If there's another alleyway on the other side or in the behind it, particularly, you maybe just shrunk the building 5 feet here, 5 feet there. So now, do I get that 5 feet to go up? Well, 5 feet really going up doesn't give me another story. And at some point, you get into the elevator situation. So it's small little tweaks like that are the devil's in the details, so to speak. And my perspective on it is, if it's not broke, don't fix it, so to speak. So there's been some comments like that. So a lot of it is those small, intricate little details that won't kill a project, but can just kind of change the shape and design of it.
Cameron Moore with us from the Wilmington Cape Fear Homebuilders Association. He's the executive officer of one of the largest home builder groups in all of the state of North Carolina and around the country. and we highlight growth, development, and the construction industry twice a month on Fridays here on the Big Talker FM. It's part of our Construction Connection segment in partnership, again, with the Wilmington Cape Fear Homebuilders Association. When we get back, we're going to get into some other details concerning stormwater program here in New Hanover County. Here we've got some news coming out of Pender County as well that we'll bring to your attention as far as, again, growth and development goes. One of the top issues of conversation, of course, all around southeastern North Carolina. We'll pick up our conversation with Cameron after the break here on the Big Talker FM.
Keeping Leland informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. At a time when the U.S. engages in renewed arms control talks with Russia, another potential adversary continues to build its military might. Analysts say China is expanding its nuclear missile launch sites in a big way. Researchers at the Federation of American Scientists estimate that China has roughly 250 underground missile silos now under construction. Roughly 200 Afghan interpreters and their families have arrived in the U.S., the first of a group of 2,500 Afghans being evacuated as the Taliban advances.
President Biden said the U.S. was fulfilling its promise to those Afghans who served shoulder to shoulder with American forces. Around 200 arrived today. They're amongst a group who've already passed through security vetting and will be taken to an army base in Virginia whilst going through the final steps of the process. Thousands of others are expected to be taken to American military bases abroad or safe third countries whilst their applications are assessed, though it's not yet clear if any agreements to host them have been reached yet.
The BBC's Sekunder Kermani in Kabul. President Biden unveils new pandemic requirements aimed at boosting vaccination rates among millions of federal workers and contractors.
President Biden called the continuing deaths from COVID-19 an American tragedy.
Right now, too many people are dying.
To help stem the surge of the virus, Biden announced new requirements for federal workers and contractors.
Every federal government employee will be asked to attest to their vaccination status.
Those who are not vaccinated will have to adhere to new rules on mandatory masking, weekly testing, and distancing. Mike Gracia, Washington.
Cleanup this morning in parts of Pennsylvania and Ohio blasted by powerful storms, including suspected tornadoes last evening. Wall Street, Dow futures down 86 points ahead of this morning's opening bell. NASDAQ futures off 168. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Mounds and mounds of fur. Our hairballs have hairballs.
Our cat Mama, she's 10 years old. She has dandruff and an oily coat.
I have two cats, Dixie and Daisy. Daisy sheds like crazy.
If you love your pets as much as I do, you want to do what's best for them to live long, healthy, happy lives.
DINOVITE.com.
I just tried this wonderful Catalicious Dynovite for cats, and my cat has been on it for 2 weeks. She is not scratching anymore. She's not chewing anymore. It is just the best.
I was thrilled when I heard Dynovite for cats was coming out because I'd seen the changes in my dog. To introduce my cats to Dynovite, I took the advice from Dynovite and put their food on top of just a scoop in the bowl, just to get them used to it, because I know if I even switch one little thing, they put their nose up to it. There was not one problem.
Dynovite for life. You won't believe how happy your cat will be.
DINOVITE.com.
South Korea's central bank says things have got really bad in North Korea, the communist country's economy suffering its steepest decline more than 20 years.
The reclusive country does not release its own economic figures, leaving South Korea's central bank to offer the most reliable assessment of its neighbor's finances. The Bank of Korea said the North's economy contracted 4.5% last year, reducing it to levels of poverty not seen since it suffered a famine in the 1990s. North Korea was already experiencing the effects of continued UN sanctions, punishment for its nuclear weapons production. But its economic decline has been compounded by Pyongyang's pandemic decision to shut its borders with China.
The BBC's Celia Hatton. Pro-democracy protester gets 9 years in prison. First prosecution under Hong Kong's national security law imposed on the territory by China. News and analysis at townhall.com. A special prosecutor in Virginia finds no wrongdoing in the award of a nearly $2 million contract to remove Richmond's Confederate statues last summer.
The prosecutor says he reviewed the findings of a state police investigation and found no criminal activity. The contract was awarded to the owner of a construction firm who had made relatively modest political donations to Democrat Mayor LeVar Stoney. The investigation was initiated after complaints from a political rival of Stoney's in the middle of an election season.
That's correspondent Ron DeRockstra. French-Dutch airline group Air France-KLM says first signs of recovery are visible in bookings amid easing of pandemic travel restrictions. The aviation group sounded the note of cautious optimism today as it reported a second quarter net loss of close to $1.8 billion. Once again on Wall Street this hour, Dow futures down 87 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
Our third and final hour of the day and the broadcast week is upon us here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM. Great to be back with Cameron Moore of the Wilmington Cape Fear Homebuilders Association today. Twice a month, we talk all issues related to the construction industry, growth and development around southeastern North Carolina. I mean, we can go negative all day, every day, given the issues that we're facing in our country. And, Fridays, we want to ease into the weekend a little bit, provide some information and steer us away, maybe as a distraction of sorts from maybe the struggles that your family have, encountered over the past year, along with the pandemic, upcoming academic year. We've got violence in the city. Let's focus on another topic for just a little while, as we have for the past half hour, and some issues that, are just as relevant here in our community and to those who live throughout the broadcast area. And, when a decision is made at the local level, at the county level, at the state level, in regards to, the construction industry, growth, development, the housing market, real estate, we hope that we're able to equip you with the information and knowledge so you have a little bit better of an understanding as to, why certain decisions, are made, to give you just a bit of an update, of course, as we do twice a month with our friend Cameron Moore, Executive Officer with the Wilmington Cape Fear Homebuilders Association. We focused in the last half hour a lot on this Unified Development Ordinance that is being discussed here in the city of Wilmington, kind of a timeline, a little backdrop on why this UDO is being updated for the first time in decades, and some of the adapting and adjusting that will be going on from a building community perspective once this is implemented here in the city. New Hanover County also has moved forward with a similar update to their ordinance as well. We all know a couple of years ago with Hurricane Florence in the area, how ill-equipped we were when it came to the massive flooding and rainfall that we dealt with, and ultimately to find out that, well, much of our area was not prepared from a logistics standpoint to handle the stormwater that came in. We remember Smith Creek, filled with vegetation and the inability for water to get out of our city and county into the Cape Fear River and then out into the Atlantic Ocean. So this has been a topic that has been really at the forefront of a discussion here within New Hanover County from Florence and even in years leading up to that storm. And there are some things going on within the New Hanover County Stormwater Program that Cameron wants to bring your attention to here this morning. And Cameron, when we look at stormwater, I know in the middle of hurricane season, it's quiet, a little too quiet out in the Atlantic right now. Here in the end of July, as we know, things typically ramp up middle of August through September, and then even sometimes into the beginning of October. So as we put our focus on storm season, storm water runoff is always a concern in our area. What kind of updates can you provide for us as far as this program in New Hanover County goes?
Sure. So we've had some conversations. So recently the commissioners kind of readopted the New Hanover County Stormwater Ordinance. There is now a new stormwater services division within the county, and essentially it's run through the engineering section of the county. And for a lot of what you just mentioned, Hurricane Florence wasn't really the impetus behind this, but it actually showcased the reasoning for why New Hanover County was working in this direction. But just like the city has a stormwater management program to where they come and clean out in the public realm, so to speak, the ditches and culverts and do other things as far as stormwater management, the county is wading into that as well through some money that they've got through, I believe, the CARES Act and some other funding sources. They were actually able to this year, fiscal year, which was as of now in July, there's going to be a new fee that residents will see that has been reduced quite extensively for this first year. There's some credits and some other stuff. I'm not going to get all into that. But essentially now what we have is through Hurricane Florence, what we saw, and let's just kind of back up and put a little bit of perspective to this. I mean, what was it? 28 inches of rain in
2 days, 3 days.
I mean, you're going to see some flooding. I mean, it's just, I don't care really where you are. You're going to see some flooding. But nonetheless, the county has weighed into this new program. And what the program will do is come into areas like regional ponds, regional service type of things, clean out ditches, clean out culverts within right-of-ways, within easements, really kind of that public realm, so to speak, where it doesn't just affect one property owner, but affects, a multitude of property owners. And it also can help on the development side to where, say, we as a developer have two developments kind of, I don't know, a mile apart, but we're draining into the same waterway as far as our outfall. Once it's gone through the BMPs and treated and everything through the subdivision, through the development, to where that pipe size needs to go from maybe a 12 to a 24. The county, we can partner now with the county to come in to put that 24. If you have a 12-inch pipe downstream, and that's where kind of the spigot is, or the dam, so to speak, is, because that's essentially what happens when we have the lack of maintenance or the lack of infrastructure in place to handle this. So program itself will really help on the infrastructure side, but then when we look at the program, we also have to look at the permit itself. And so we as developers have to go and get a stormwater management permit. We get one from the state, and we also get one from the county to basically an authorization to construct. Both of those permits have to be at some point transferred over to, or typically development process, or transferred over to a HOA, the Homeowners Association. The developer, obviously develops, sells the lots, the builders come in, and at some point the developer extracts himself out of that development and moves on to the next one. That's their business model. That's how that works. The challenge is, and I'll kind of shift to the state a little bit. I think the state, I know this for a fact from just my basic observations of doing this for as long as I've been doing this. The state focused, quite frankly, way too much on the regulatory side of stormwater management. Beating us over the head with a stick, more regulations, more regulations, more regulations. But what they haven't done is focused on the maintenance side. And they have a significant challenge at the state level to where they have probably over, from last count of what I heard, coming from the state, over 15,000 permits just in the coastal perspective of low-density permits that they really don't know who owns that permit. They have an old permittee as far as the owner, but they really don't understand where that permit kind of currently sits. So that's a significant challenge, and I think the same thing, we're trying to work with the county right now to make sure that that doesn't happen within the county. And essentially what has happened, and we found this out, a lot of this happened during the recession. If, as a permittee, I have to actually put my name on the permit, physically put Cameron Moore on the permit. So I am individually responsible for that permit. Well, what if I die? Where does that permit go? Who comes after the permit? And so that has happened. We have issues where we have deceased permittees that have their names on those permits to where now they can't be transferred over to the HOA. There's no mechanism for them to transfer over to the HOA, or for that matter, another developer, or anybody for that matter. We also have cases in the recession where we have developers that unfortunately lost the property through bankruptcy and do not hold any title, control, rights, privileges, or anything over that. Matter of fact, they probably defuncted the LLC and bankrupted the LLC that was actually where the permit was under and the development was under. And now we have a new developer that's come in after 4 or 5 banks have actually taken that property and moved it through their process and kind of reshaped it and put it back on the development market. Well, that developer can't get the permit. And then the old permittee is now getting a letter with $25,000 fines per day, basically saying you're out of compliance. So it's turned into a mess, and we're fixing it at the state level. There's a piece of legislation right now that's sitting in House Rules. It's gone from Senate to the House. It's an agency bill because we've been working with the state for about 2.5 years trying to wade through this and fix certain things. Jumping to the county. Well, same kind of issues can exist and persist within the county. And so we've been working with Jim Iannucci. We're going to be working with the planning board and the commissioners to bring some changes, some very positive changes forward through a text amendment process to put in place strategies for where a permittee or a permit can move through a process based on the situation of where it sits in, whether it be deceased, whether it be they don't hold the rights or the privileges, don't own the permit anymore, whether they sold the development. And in the case where you maybe have an HOA, and I'll use this, is holding the developer hostage, saying, you know, we'll take the permit, but we want you to put in, repave our roads and do all this stuff. No, that's not how this works. And so we're putting in some strategies to where the permit can rightfully at some point lay in the hands of where it needs to lay.
Making a little bit of a, kind of a situation that, as you said, kind of it's a broad scope, and to be able to individualize things and make it, kind of a pay-as-you-go sort of thing is probably an approach that would be well-suited for this sort of thing.
It would. I mean, and ultimately, I mean, you think about it. I mean, the way that stormwater is somewhat set up, you go in and you buy a piece of property and then you put a house on it. You have a BUA, a built-upon area that you're supposed to adhere to. You're the responsible party of your lot. That's private property rights. That's your lot. You're responsible for maintaining and doing the things that you need to do within the permit, and it shows on your deed. It shows on your deed that you get closed on that day that you have, 2,000 square feet of BUA. So you put a house at 1,800. You got 200 square feet of left. You want to put some decking and some driveways and stuff like that. What has happened over the course of time without the developer and builders knowing, or the developers and builders being out of the development but still not being able to transfer the permit, you have individuals that have come in through really, and it's an educational thing, Joe, is really what it comes down to, really no fault of their own in some cases. They've built on patios and decks and pools and done different things. The next thing you know, they've put in 500 square feet of additional pervious area. Well, then you times that by 20 lots, 30 lots, 100 lots. Now you have over 300,000 square feet of impervious area that is not accounted for in the original permit. And the developer is getting, it's essentially, being challenged with trying to fix all that. And of course, in their eyes, I have to agree with them. Like, I didn't do that. When I had the permit and I built the subdivision, Diener came out, my engineer came out, certified it in compliance. I should be able to, at that point, be able to transfer the permit. So we're having to work on some mechanisms here. And I think a lot of it is we focus so much on the regulatory side of stormwater, and we still will. We'll still have regulations, and there will be new regulations and all that. But we've got to focus on the maintenance. And a lot of what happened in Hurricane Florence due to the flooding was that. It was maintenance. You talk about ditches, cleaning out the ditches, whether it's a ditch on people's property or a regional ditch that, functionally drains water from a multitude of different properties. Well, if that ditch hasn't been maintained and has grass growing all through it and this growing all through it and trees growing all in it and overgrown, it serves as a dam. It acts as a dam and things back up.
And we saw that, again, as you said, 28 inches of rain in a couple of days. We've gotten a couple of storms recently that have dumped down, locally in certain areas.
2, 3, 4 inches.
And within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So, the areas are going to be overrun with water for, a certain period of time, but there are mitigation things that can take place over the course of time when it's not hurricane season or when we're not dealing with storms. Just seems to me as when it hits and then the aftermath, it's at the front of attention. We've got our elected officials telling us this, and everything else needs to be done. And then when push comes to shove, it's we're going to raise property taxes. And what's going on over here? Right. It was a mess of a situation. We found out that there were ways that we could have better handled things, that we were ignoring a lot of the maintenance of these sorts of things, and our attention once again distracted and brought over to another issue.
Yeah,
but this is a pressing problem in our area, given that we're a coastal city in the middle of Hurricane Alley.
It is, and I'll use a great example of how this program is really going to work and benefit the residents of New Hanover County. In our neighborhood, there is a low section when you come into the first section of the neighborhood. There's a run of a ditch that's a low section. It has had flooding issues. Matter of fact, before we ever bought our house, I think in Hurricane Floyd, there were 2 houses that were bought out through hazard mitigation funding, and fire came in, burned the house down for training and everything. And those houses, there's actually a sign up at both of those lots. There's a ditch that is at least 10 feet deep, 15 foot wide. So that's a sizable ditch. And the water flows through there when it rains. Trust me, it flows like a rapid through there sometimes. But the challenge is you have that run on the other side, and there was a house there that, because of the ditch on the other side wasn't maintained for many, many, many years, that house continuously had flooding issues. And in Hurricane Florence, had probably over 5 feet of water in the house. The residents essentially, the homeowners that own the house, they just moved out. But long story short here, hazard mitigation funding came in through some grants that the county had, bought that house. They turn it over to the county is typically what happens here. So the county now owns that lot. There will never, ever be another house built on that. But what the county is going to do, DOT came in and upsized the culverts, dare I say, after Hurricane Florence and after the house flooded. We won't get into that conversation. But they went in and took a 18-inch pipe that was a single pipe and put in 3 32-inch pipes. So that tells you how much water's running through there. But the county has that lot. They have recently removed the house, and the plan, to my understanding, talking to Stormwater Services here, is they're going to build a pond there, basically as an overflow. So that water will have somewhere to go, essentially as a pond. It'll be a kind of a regional stormwater pond for that main run of that ditch.
I've noticed some big construction going on up in Market Street, up towards Porter's Neck, where they've near Marsh Oaks, where they've just recently taken smaller pipes out and put some big ones in there. I'm assuming this is all related to, and some of the culverts on the side with the rocks. This is all due to stormwater.
Well, and that'll also help too, because not only now where the developer will have the opportunity to partner with the county, we'll also have both of us will have the opportunity to partner with DOT as well. So I think it's going to be a really good thing for the county. The challenge is going to be is that it's probably going to take, kind of like the old NEI issues with the interceptor issues and sewer issues that we had.
It's going to take a
while to kind of come in and slowly but surely figure out where these challenges are, these pinch points, and then come in and look to where we have put them in capital projects.
I'm interested, we focused a lot on New Hanover County here this morning. I'm interested when it comes to stormwater, what's going on in Brunswick County, because during the course of Florence, again, it was basically the county was divvied up into 3 different islands, essentially, and there's not much you're going to do about some of these creeks that are overflowing, but some of these neighborhoods ended up, these homes with 7-8 feet of water in their house, and what's going on in Brunswick County to help, with these situations, or is there anything that can be done to help, mitigate this?
Brunswick County has their own stormwater management plan. A lot of the area that we did see flooding in, there were certainly some in the western portion of Brunswick County. The ones that hit the paper here for our area in the news was right there when you're on 17 Stony Creek, Snee Farm area. That is in the town of Leland. I know that they have their own stormwater management program, but I haven't seen anything as far as any changes to that program. Again, a lot of that was just the volume of rain and volume of water moving through that section of that wetland, and it overflowed. Now, again, maintenance. It's going to come down to maintenance.
Cameron Moore with us of the Wilmington Cape Fear Homebuilders Association. Twice a month, we talk everything related to construction, development, and growth here across southeastern North Carolina. Quickly, before I let you go, you had a note here surrounding some recent hearings coming up in Pender County. Right. We know Hampstead, overflowing, more and more growth up Rocky Point into Burgaw. I mean, a lot of these places are growing up, and they're doing so really fast because, one, a little bit more for your money in that area as compared to the city in Wilmington and here in New Hanover County. Talk about some of the news in Pender County that people should pay attention to.
Sure. So we have a updated Collector Street plan coming to the Planning Commission next week, and then looking for probably 2 hearings in front of the commissioners as far as maybe an October adoption. The plan that we're under now as far as the Collector Street plan, what a Collector Street plan real quick is, essentially it is a county-wide display of roads and networks of roads that developers, once they get to starting to develop their property, may or may not have to build or construct. And that is a challenge within counties, a little bit different than cities. Cities can help us partner with building roads as far as oversized facilities, whereas the counties typically don't have any skin in the game, so to speak. And so that's going to be a significant challenge when we move into any collector street plan within a county perspective. But the development community will be tasked with, in certain cases, to look at having to extend or build roadway sections within their development to efficiently move traffic. That's, again, as projects move through, the proof is kind of the devil's in the details, so to speak. We're working through the ordinance right now. The old plan, quite frankly, Joe, was way too rigid. The challenge is if you have 1,000 acres or 100 acres and there's a road that's supposed to go through it, it eats up a portion of your property, which means that it eats up a portion of the property in the sense that means buildable lots to where you can make the numbers work to make a development work. It is a business model here that we run as far as the development community. That's how we make money and continue to do what we do. But at the end of the day, too, the rigidness of the current plan created a situation to where that road or the road network didn't have a lot of flexibility of where it could be moved. It needs to go here. Well, the last time I rode through any of our area, there are a ton of wetlands or hydric soil areas. And it didn't really take into account a lot of the geographic environmental features. And so, quite frankly, the development community pretty much said it's just not going to work. And it was shown multiple times through a lot of different variances when developers have come through in the last 2 years. I think the old one was in 2016, so it's been actually 4 years now, that there was multiple variances granted, which anytime when you have multiple variants granted for certain things in a code, it means you got something wrong in your code. But moving through now, Planning Commission, adoption through the commissioners, it's better in some sense, but there are some things that are still can present challenges. I mean, again, the biggest challenge is when the developer comes in and is tasked with building what could have been a $2 million road now to a $6 million road. Will that development ever get off the ground?
Cameron Moore with us from the Wilmington Cape Fear Homebuilders Association. Again, twice a month, we talk all things related to growth, development, and the construction industry here in southeastern North Carolina, one of the fastest growing areas in all of our nation. Cameron, as always, great information, and thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Let's get some of these candidates on these next couple shows, and let's have some conversations with them.
Cameron did a great job during the previous election cycle to talk with all of the New Hanover County Commission candidates, and he'll be working over the next several weeks to speak with many city council candidates, some town council candidates through some of the area beach towns over in Leland. They have an election as well. That's coming up in November, of course, and notoriously known for low voter turnout when it comes to these off-year odd year elections. We always talk to you about the fact that government that impacts you most is the one closest to you, meaning local government, and why you should be involved and informed where candidates stand on many of the issues, including a very important one that we highlight twice a month as part of our Construction Connection segment here on the Big Talker FM.
Hey, this is Charlie Miller, your state representative in the North Carolina House. Just wanted to say thank you for listening. If you get a chance to go on Facebook and search Representative Charlie Miller to receive my exclusive legislative updates to keep you up to date with all of what's happening in Raleigh. You can also sign up for my newsletter to have a direct line of information straight from the Capitol. Looking forward to hearing from you soon. Paid for by the committee to elect Charlie Miller for NC House.
Is your dog or cat a picky eater or suffer with skin and food allergies or excessive shedding? Did you know dry food was the #1 cause of these health problems?
My name is Victor from Durham, North Carolina. I have a 3-year-old male Cane Corso, and I've been feeding him raw diet for 3 years. I switched over to the ready-made prepackaged raw diet. He is fit and trim. He still runs around and moves like a puppy.
Let's get your pet naturally healthy, naturally happy today. Visit heavensenthealthypet.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gabe Frank of the Frank Institute, and I wanted to tell you about our IV vitamin, infusion, and hydration therapies. These IVs are the most effective treatment for vitamin and nutrition deficiencies available, and with our wide range of offering, your treatment can be tailored to your specific needs. Whether you struggle with hydration or nutritional deficiency, injury recovery, low energy, please feel free to check out our IV infusions today. Schedule an appointment at 910-679-8534 or check out all our treatment services at www.frankinstitute.com.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. The Biden administration has announced sweeping new pandemic rules for federal workers and some contractors. It is requiring that any federal civilian worker who does not attest to being fully vaccinated will be subject to universal masking, weekly testing, physical distancing from other employees, and restrictions on official travel. The Biden administration hopes this helps boost vaccination rates among millions of Americans who draw federal paychecks and sets an example for private employers around the country. Wilmington police are investigating a deadly drive-by shooting which happened in the 800 block of South 13th Street just before 5:30 last night. It left one woman dead and another critically injured. A spokesman says police are bolstering patrols in the area. The heat is rising, but that doesn't mean your energy bill has to. According to Duke Energy spokesman Jeff Brooks, simple tricks like making sure your air filters are clean, keeping the blinds closed, and turning off the lights can save you money. Duke Energy also suggests raising the thermostat to the highest comfortable setting, and to prevent your home from getting too hot, avoid using the oven and cook outside. Brooks says making a few adjustments like this can help you keep your power bill down during the hottest days of the summer. And the new Live Oak Bank Pavilion at Riverfront Park in downtown Wilmington is leaving its mark in an unexpected way: trash. The amount of litter after the recent concert by the band Widespread Panic has Cape Fear River Watch asking for volunteers to clean up after the next show. A cleanup is planned this Sunday from 9 to 11 a.m. after Saturday night's show. The organization says Live Nation is taking steps to prevent large-scale littering. After the Widespread Panic show, there was litter strewn for blocks. Sunday, volunteers will target nearby streets and storm drains. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Friday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Well, today's going to be the hottest day of the work week. We're going to see temperatures in the middle and upper 90s inland of the coast, and on the coastline, we're topping off in the low 90s. Unfortunately, though, not going to be feeling like that. When you factor in the humidity, we're going to see heat index values get into the triple digits, ranging anywhere between 105 to 110 degrees, so find ways to stay cool today. We have heat advisories in effect until 7 p.m. this evening. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
As we do it every Friday morning in our final half hour, we welcome in the global grassroots movement of consumer choice and our friend Yael Ossowski. He and his tag team partner, David Clement, host the Consumer Choice radio show. It airs weekly on Saturdays at 10 a.m. here on the Big Talker FM as part of our great weekend block of programming. Tired of talking about drive-by shootings, mask mandates, and all the other upsetting things that we often lay out for you, like no one else does here on the Big Talker FM. Trying to bring some encouragement into the conversation, at least a little information that you can take with you for your next conversation and debate with people who may not see things the way you do, which is quite okay. We live in the US of A, and we're supposed to be able to have discussions with, like-minded folks and others all together. And at the end of the day, throw one up, pour one out for the homies, and enjoy your life just a bit, rather than always being a negative Nancy. But I guess when you're dodging bullets at 5th and Grace, the way my car was earlier this week, it makes you, a little upsetting in your stomach. But nonetheless, here we are. We're vertical, and we're happy to be here. And we're happy to welcome in Yael Ossowski from the Consumer Choice Center. Yael, I hope all is well, my friend.
Yes, I'm similarly vertical, but my happy hour begins before yours, so that'll change very, very soon.
Well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, as my grandma always taught me. So, we live at the beach, and it is a Friday. So your happy hour may be getting underway shortly, but I will be following, not soon after. Very soon after, I should say.
Well, that's good. I wish I could open up one of these beers I'm staring at in the office because it's a hot day. There's a lot of stuff going on in the news that have been keeping me busy on the fingers, and it's been quite a week, Joe. So excited to chat a bit.
Well, there's no question. And first and foremost, I want to get your update because your wife has been having a couple of spa days over the last few days this week. So it's been daddy daycare for yourself and your little beautiful 3-year-old. What's that been like for you here through the last few days?
It's been tough. There hasn't been as much Peppa Pig as you might expect. I've kept that down to a minimum. But yeah, it's definitely something. You have to juggling, your family, your job, your children. It makes it very difficult. And, you always got to think of ways to continuously entertain and provide some kind of fun thing to do, some activity, some place to go. Luckily, there's a lot of parks around here. So I try to go to the private park because, I like private stuff. Hang out at the private park, hang out. There's a lot of other parents there, so you can kind of chit-chat, get to know them a bit. So that was pretty cool, but kind of a swelter. So unfortunately, I had to walk all the way back home and endure the heat. But it's been a fun couple of days, and I really do think we should throw as much support to all of the moms out there who do provide a good number of or a good percentage of the child care in our country. And I think they're doing an amazing job. We probably don't give enough recognition, Joe.
Well,
but also for the dads out there too.
Well, let me just give you a little word of advice as someone who does a lot of daddy daycare for one reason or the other, and I enjoy it in many cases, that you need to cozy up to a couple of friends that have big families. And then you all go out, well, to the beach or to the park, and then she just becomes, part of the litter, so to speak. And, they run around and they have a great old time. They entertain each other, and you get to sit on back there, throw the recliner up, and maybe pop open that beer that you're looking at this morning. So just, maybe some words of encouragement and advice for you next time. Find a circle of friends, out there in Vienna, and, just throw her in the pack, and, all will be well.
There's a lot of actually interesting sociological research on particularly dads, especially those in our 30s, and how they make friends. And actually, the majority of dads in their 30s, they make the majority of their friends through either their kind of kids' friends' parents or their wives' friends' husbands. So our social circles are getting, shorter and shorter and smaller just because we don't have the active social lives that we used to. So I have been able to meet a couple people, but it's interesting to see that kind of research. We're always looking for bros here. That's our policy. So pour one out for the homies. I'm all in on that.
Well, I came, what was it, 4th of July weekend. I had some friends from Greensboro who were in town, and they are of the Hispanic descent, from El Salvador and Mexico, and they roll deep. So they brought the whole, family, grandparents, and their 58 children. And boy, my daughter was like one of the family that weekend. And while I was in daddy daycare for most of that 4th of July weekend, I was enjoying my life just as much as she was with all of the kids that were in the area. So I'm just saying, you find that group and you just kind of attach yourself to it.
Well, if you're going to send your daughter to a gang, it's best if you choose the gang, and you're okay with the bosses in the target.
Yael, I hear that you have some constructive criticism here this morning that you would like to deliver. I get it from time to time from, plenty from the trolls out there who feel that they know it all. And others, that I work alongside. Hey, you could do this maybe a little bit better in your delivery, a little less ums and ahs, and more, allowing a pause rather than trying to fill up time. Let that pause settle in. It's for emphasis. So this week and the week prior, we had the opportunity to catch up with two of the leading Republican candidates in the U.S. Senate race here in North Carolina ahead of the midterms in 2022. We had Governor McCrory on earlier this week. We had Mark Walker on. He's been a guest on the program a few times prior to that, and you had the luxury of listening to those conversations, and now you would like to provide some constructive criticism, or you'd like to judge the ways in which I conducted those interviews from what I hear this morning.
Yeah, no, I just think it takes another, there's a little bit of analysis, right? You need some analysts to kind of diagnose everything that we heard. I think both interviews were very good. I think you kind of held court. You definitely showed that you're the guy with the microphone and the megaphone, and you steered them in a good direction. We were able to get some of their personality. Obviously, a lot of it is based on just this ridiculous ghost of Trump that everybody wants to tout. So I know that a lot of people are running from that, but I do think the pressing, what makes you different than the other candidates and try to needle them, that was very good. I especially like that with Walker. And with McCrory, obviously, he's a skilled dude. He's been on the radio for years now. He kept it a bit general. It seems as if he's been looking at the poll results and just saying, okay, it looks like socialism's down, critical race theory's down. I guess somewhat Trumpism is up, so I'll try to play with that a bit. I didn't hear any new original ideas, and you need that if you're in politics, especially if you've been in politics, for half of your career. You better come to the table with new ideas if you're looking for a new job. So I was hoping to get a bit more from there. You did press him, though. I think that was good. You could even, go tougher. It's like, hey, what are your original ideas here? Because you're just saying I'm the most conservative. I am conservative. Well, what does that mean? Define that. I would have taken that the next step. But I think overall he did a good job. I think the listeners to The Big Talker definitely got great analysis and got to hear from them directly, which is very good. So I'm really looking forward to you perhaps hosting one of these debates. It doesn't have to be on any of these, bozo TV stations. It can be right here on the radio.
Well, no question. We've got a beautiful studio here overlooking the Cape Fear River and the battleship. I think no perfect setting. We've got three chairs and microphones all set up perfectly for those three leading GOP candidates. And for Governor McCrory, well, his staff has agreed that he'll be coming on every couple of weeks with us. Congressman Walker is always available, still trying to find Representative Ted Budd. His staff has not yet kind of returned any inquiries that we've sent their way. He has put together an ad buy throughout much of North Carolina. Go ahead.
Joe, he's too busy, quote unquote, crushing the liberal agenda with a monster truck, if you've seen the ad. So he's a bit busy doing that. He can't really do the interviews right now.
Following, the footsteps of the governor of Georgia. Remember Brian Kemp when he had that commercial? Look at my pickup truck. I rile up some illegals and drop them off at the border. That was quite the classic. Go that way. And, that was quite.
And I do like hearing the ads, and I think that's one thing I love about radio is just kind of hearing what they put out there. The ad that is just basically Trump saying, I absolutely and totally endorse this candidate. That's interesting.
I mean, he played that.
We'll see if it'll play.
Yeah. I mean, in a Republican primary that also includes unaffiliated voters, we'll see. I mean, how it shakes out. It should be a fun race. It's going to be a very expensive one once it becomes, into the general. And the leading Democratic candidate, Sherry Beasley, nearly won her reelection for Supreme Court Chief Justice and has some name recognition. Comes with, a slew, of course, as far as her record goes when it comes to decisions that she's made at the Supreme Court level. So there'll be plenty to, pick and choose from as far as some of the topics that Republicans will highlight as far as her record when we get into that portion of the election cycle.
Yeah, you're not wrong. There's going to be a lot of focus on what's happening in North Carolina with the Senate race. A lot of money, as you mentioned. I do like this kind of metric of looking at how much money is coming from out of state. That's going to be really interesting to follow. So who are the people who are raising more money from, let's say the national Republicans? Who are those who are raising money from the grassroots and from people here in NC? That's what's going to be really interesting because I think there's a lot of cleavages. There's a lot of stuff that's being projected onto the races. And the one thing we don't want to have in North Carolina is one that's just driven by what the federal politics are. What are you going to do to improve the lives of North Carolinians? Not the broad conservative agenda, just the average person. I would agree with what McCrory said is we have to think about the moderates a bit. You can't just toss them by the wayside. There's got to be some thinking of how we're going to improve North Carolinians. So we're covering it. We're following it, Joe. And thanks to the big talker, I know we'll get more of these interviews in the months to come.
Yeah, we're looking forward to them. Anytime we get closer and closer to an election, it's always fun to talk about and with the candidates who are seeking your vote and then those who are defending the decisions they've made during the course of a term in office, whether it be from city council here in Wilmington or all the way up to some of the highest levels of public office in Washington, D.C. And, and speaking of Washington, D.C., we've got this $1.2 trillion infrastructure plan that has garnered the support of a group of Republicans, including our two North Carolina senators and Tom Tillis and Richard Burr. We had Grover Norquist on yesterday, and he kind of went through the politics of it. And once Mitch McConnell kind of got on board with this, then the Republicans followed, including Mitt Romney and some of the others. But when we talk about the devil in the details, isn't this how it kind of always goes? There is no legislative text yet detailing all of the $1.2 trillion in spending. I've heard that the PRO Act, which would seriously damper my ability to make money off some of the side hustles that help supplement my income, is included in this infrastructure bill. Not really sure what that has to do with infrastructure per se. And also, how are we going to pay for the $1.2 trillion in spending? You have a pretty good idea on what may play out, right, Yael, if in fact this moves forward?
Yeah, I think if we look at the whole bill, it's $1.2 trillion. $550 billion is sort of brand new spending. This has been plucked out of nowhere, and the new stuff that's kind of on the Biden agenda. Obviously, one big one that I've talked about and written about is their broadband initiative. Now, this is pretty ludicrous. The idea is they're going to centrally manage and control how people get internet in our country, which I think is really ridiculous. They're all in on fiber. The moment that we have all these satellites going up to provide internet, we have all these great mobile networks that are expanding everywhere. I mean, North Carolina is getting more and more mobile networks. And it's this kind of stuff to where you see the billions of dollars being spent. It's all good once you see it on a piece of paper, but what it'll actually mean for us who have to pay for it. And I think you did in the last segment a good job of highlighting the important needs for infrastructure spending, particularly if it comes to beach areas like Wilmington, if it comes to coast towns. That's very necessary and important. But how they're going to pay for all the additional stuff that we're talking about, including all the subsidies for various industries, is they're talking about targeted corporate user fees. Now, that's one term that a lot of people won't be familiar with. A user fee is much like when you use a service, you're charged a particular fee for doing so. And that's what every single government agency does to get anything approved, is they have to essentially pay the agency for their time. Now, what they're saying is they're actually going to increase this and target it. I have no idea what this will mean in terms of money or figures, but it will mean that the cost of doing business will go up. And there's plenty of small business people around North Carolina who've had to fill out all kinds of forms. They've had to do all kinds of applications. They have to do all kinds of permits, both federal and state. That means they're going to pay more. So that doesn't sound very good. And the second one that I'm obviously very angry about is the idea that they're going to crack down on cryptocurrencies, particularly taxation on cryptocurrency. The IRS does ask you now how much crypto you have in your account when you file your taxes, which I think is none of its business. But that's something that who knows what that enforcement will mean. Does that mean they're going to have a whole crypto tax division? All these guys looking if you've ever bought anything on crypto, if you connected to it in any way. What will those taxes look like? Are they going to put that in your income tax? Is there going to be a surcharge? I mean, it's this kind of stuff to where we understand the need for infrastructure spending, but when we go to this next level and you start talking about ways that we can increase all the taxes on user fees, taxes on crypto, making it so that contractors might be out of a job with things like the PRO Act that they're putting in there. It's this kind of stuff that I think does not really serve our populations. It's serving political constituencies. It's serving labor unions. It's serving a lot of different interests who have a lot of pull in D.C. So that's why we're really trying to push against that. We're trying to represent the consumer and say, hey, here's actually how you'll be impacted. Here's what you can do to stop it. We have reached out to a lot of legislators in the last couple of weeks trying to get our voice in the mix. I mean, it's a busy cacophony there in D.C., and I won't purport to be louder than anyone else, but I hope we represent for the consumer, and we'll continue to do so, because there's a lot of stuff in here, Joe, that I think a lot of people would be really incensed by.
Yael Ossowski with the Consumer Choice Center, again, highlighting a topic that, made some headlines this week in Washington, D.C., a part of this bipartisan agreement and procedural vote to move forward with this $1.2 trillion infrastructure deal. And again, awaiting the details, the devil in the details, yet already with the support of, our two senators, and Richard Burr and Tom Tillis, along with 15 other Republicans. No legislative text as far as, what is included in the bill. So following the old Nancy Pelosi way of thought, Yael? Let's pass the bill before we find out what's in it.
Yeah, we have to talk about that for a second. That's inherently bogus. I mean, just imagine you're about to do business with someone and you don't get the contract until 1 minute before you sign. That's essentially what's happening here. How are you supposed to read through? I mean, this is probably going to end up being about 8,000 pages. How is any human being, let alone a computer, supposed to read all of this and actually understand? I think these are the kind of games that happen when there's a lot of this, political behind the scenes, dark rooms. They got the cigar smoke everywhere, or maybe a vape smoke, I hope. But it's this kind of stuff that really makes you cynical, because, where's the normal process of this? Where, at least the North Carolina legislature, if they got bills, they put out a draft, people debate it, stakeholders come and they testify. Here we have absolutely nothing but a couple of deals. Maybe it's people on the golf course, or I guess at the vegan restaurant, coming up with what we're going to spend $1.2 trillion on. It's frankly ridiculous. And any other country, when they debate bills this large, I mean, they have everyone weighing in on it. They give people time to read the bill, to pick it out. If they're just going to throw it on a Friday and then it's got to be voted on in the midnight hours, yeah, that doesn't look too good. I'm not a big fan of that. I'd actually prefer to have gridlock when it comes to government, because then we know at least new taxes are not being passed and new regulations. But overall, I'm not too confident in this process. That's why it's been politics, Joe.
Yael Ossowski with the Consumer Choice Center. Yael, before I let you go, I know how much you're an advocate for privatizing the liquor industry here in the state of North Carolina, given the fact that, some are saying we're on the cusp of a liquor shortage here in North Carolina, Ohio, I believe New Hampshire are the 3 states the article highlighted. Well, why? Well, because the government controls the booze here in the state of North Carolina. All in the while, Yael, our New Hanover County ABC board was out touting this week that they just issued $510,000 in grants awarded through the fiscal year of 2021 and 2022. $510,000 in grants from the local ABC board issued to this group, that group, another organization, here, there, everywhere. Yet I have had trouble finding my favorite taste at their local booze store as of late.
Yeah, I forgot that part in the North Carolina state constitution where these local alcohol boards are supposed to be rewarding money as grants. I think you could replace all of these boards with just computers, and the answer is always yes, because it's just the permits that you need to serve alcohol and this and that. You know, we just don't need to have these boards. North Carolina's system is totally archaic. We have 167 alcohol boards in 100 counties. And we see what happens when the state is put in charge of this liquor monopoly. They run out of supply. They don't know how to do business. And then people like you and me who just want to have a Cuba Libre at the end of the night, we get screwed. So it's pretty much time to get rid of this system. These guys are just laughing stocks. Again, we could replace them all by computers. It'd be much more efficient, much better. Maybe we could just put some AI stuff in there, hire some app developers and get our ABC app. And the answer will always be yes. And one more, please, bartender.
Yael Ossowski, a part of the Consumer Choice Center, the global grassroots movement for consumer choice, with us each and every week to close out the program here on a Freedom Friday. Yael, it's a pleasure, my friend, and we look forward to hearing your show tomorrow at 10 o'clock here on the Big Talker.
Oh, yes, sir. It'll be a doozy. Thanks so much, and happy Freedom Friday.
Yael Ossowski, ConsumerChoiceCenter.org. You can find the latest in consumer news here across the states and around the world at ConsumerChoiceCenter.org.
I was once out strolling one very hot summer's day.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Viewprint and the co-host of Wake Up Our Faith, every Saturday and Sunday right here on Wilmington's Big Talker. We invite you to join with our nonprofit movement by participating in the Portable Faith Community. This is a $10 a month tax-deductible contribution, and you get access to daily encouragement, resources, as well as our prayer community. You can go to wakeupmyfaith.com to get subscribed and learn more. That's wakeupmyfaith.com.
Can you name the 3 habits of healthy hygiene? We shower, we brush our teeth, and we... Wait a minute. What third habit? Think about it. The pandemics reminded us that the nose is your body's filter against a constant invasion of airborne germs. Your nose traps allergens, bacteria, and viruses, but like any filter, the more it's clogged up, the less it works. Now it's easy to clean your nose with Navage. My name's Martin Hoke, and I did not invent nasal irrigation. It's been around thousands of years, but I did invent Navage to make nasal irrigation easy for everyone. Navage uses powered suction to flush out germs that cause congestion, or worse, can make you very sick. People love Navage. It has 4.7 stars with over 70,000 online reviews. And over 2 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and feel healthier. Go to Navage.com or find Navage at Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Target, Bed Bath, and select Walmarts. Make cleaning your nose your third habit. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina. Practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Well, as we round out another great broadcast week, thanks as always for tuning in. It would not be possible without you, our partners, who are able to give us this great platform that we have each and every weekday morning here across the Cape Fear region. Well, Pfizer coming out today and saying that a third dose of the Pfizer vaccine can strongly boost protection against the Delta variant. Time for another jab, folks, to help bolster the $33.5 billion the pharmaceutical giant has made over the course of the last 7 months since the vaccination was made available. Pfizer boosts forecast for vaccine sales to $33.5 billion, and now strongly encouraging you to get a booster shot to protect you from the Delta variant. Can't make it up, folks. We'll be back Monday. Have a great weekend.
Keeping Holden Beach informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach. Here, Tom Goolsby on the Joe Catanacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire fear